No, actually, it does not mean they're out of the Calvin Ridley. I'm not sure who I said in terms of the wide receiver, but they signed Gabe Davis. Are they out of the Calvin Ridley sweepstakes? And people out of Jacksonville, no. Actually, they're not. Calvin Ridley's still in play there. We'll see where he ends up. Chiefs only making some smaller moves yesterday. Earned rights free agents and the Chris Jones big deal, and, of course, James Winchester. Couple of observations from yesterday, and then we'll get into the Big 12 tournament starting today about an hour and 20 minutes from now. The women's Big 12 tournament wrapping up tonight with Iowa State and Texas. Unfortunately, K-State not able to get it done in their comeback attempt and eventually taking the lead. But some big shots by Texas, some costly, bad timing turnovers that took place in that game late. And Texas prevailed and moved on to face off against Iowa State. So the women's tournament wrapping up tonight, the men's getting underway at about an hour and 20 minutes. A couple of observations from yesterday as we head into today. I mentioned Carlton Davis. That's one of the first ones. And these are in no particular order, as in like this is the biggest or smallest observation. The conversation around Trey Smith and whether or not Eric Eager, Schumer Sports, that's on with Soren Petro, love the conversations. He has talked about trading Trey Smith and getting a draft pick back for him and, filling in that gap with, Allegretti, whoever. And we see the guard market. It's unbelievable what happened to the guard market. Last year, people were upset, and I get it. People were mad about the fact that the Chiefs gave Jawaan Taylor $20 million a year to play tackle. Now, they are more upset about that now after watching a full season of Jawaan Taylor and how bad that signing has been. It's been rough. He has to be better to earn that contract, to earn the trust of the Chiefs fans and show that he was worth the money. That was a year ago. Fast forward to yesterday, Robert Hunt goes to the Panthers from the Dolphins and gets $20 million per year. A guard. $20 million. I mean, we were all blown away by Joe Thuney's deal a few years ago. Now Joe Thuney's cap hit is really kicking in with the Chiefs because they have restructured a couple of times and made it a little more difficult for them to move on from Joe Thuney. But you're talking about, and obviously Robert Hunt is good, but you're talking about, Joe Thuney getting $16, $17 million per year, and people are like, wow, for a guard, I cannot believe he's getting that much money. A few years later, Robert Hunt's getting $20 million per year. Jonah Jackson goes to the Rams for $17 million per year. Kevin Dotson goes to the Rams for $16 million per year. I mean, you've got three different guards that signed for essentially as much or more than what the Chiefs signed Joe Thuney for, and we're not talking about the best guard maybe in football, one of the best guards in football. And I know inflation happens, and we're discussing it from the Chris Jones standpoint of, my God, how can the Chiefs survive a Chris Jones contract like that? And how much money and the cap hit that's going to be there in 2026? It's going to be a disaster. They can't survive that. You can't do that. It's not viable. It's not sustainable. And yet you're seeing money just thrown around. Craziness for interior offensive linemen. The Chiefs will have decisions to make with Creed Humphrey and with Trey Smith. They have big decisions to make. Yesterday's signings tell me that Creed Humphrey's probably going to be re-signed and Trey Smith may be walking. He's going to get paid, and I don't know that the Chiefs can afford to keep Trey Smith around for what the guard market did yesterday. The running back market bounced back a little bit, and the wide receivers, only one wide receiver that was signed that changed teams. Michael Pittman re-signs with the Colts or gives an extension from the franchise tag. Mike Evans re-signed with the Bucs, but that was, last week. Kendrick Bourne re-signing with the Patriots, but again, back when Mike Evans, and Gabe Davis with the Jags. That's it. There are wide receivers that are out there. And teams were not willing to go right out there and sign a bunch of wide receivers. But they did with running backs. And I think there's a direct causation, to the NFL draft coming up this year. It is not a heavy running back draft. It is a heavy wide receiver draft. There are a lot of wide receivers that are going to be available in the draft. Running backs pretty scarce. So in a year where running backs were scarce and you had Saquon Barkley and Josh Jacobs out there on the open market, those guys get $12 million per year, but also the fact that running backs are going to be tough to find in the draft. Chiefs are looking for running backs, and I understand why they did not go and sign a few of the guys here that ended up signing. I would have loved to see them grab Zach Moss. Now that I know that Zach Moss is a Bengal, I would have liked it even more. I'm annoyed at a couple of the things the Bengals have done because I think they've made some smart decisions. The biggest one that they'll have to make is what they do with T. Higgins. Because it's one thing for the Bengals to have Burrow and Chase and Higgins and Boyd and have those four guys, the quarterback and the three wide receivers. And it's another thing to say now you've got Burrow and Chase. And no Tyler Boyd and no T. Higgins. I am not going to have the opinion that some had about Patrick Mahomes. Burrow is not Mahomes. But I'm not going to have the opinion that some had about Patrick Mahomes of, Keenan Allen. People are going to get exposed. Somebody's going to get exposed now that Tyreek Hill is not on the Chiefs. We'll finally see what happens with the Chiefs now that Tyreek Hill isn't there. And all the Chiefs have done is go out there and win 2 Super Bowls. They revamped. It was, and this is, the Patrick Mahomes Part 2 era. And they have one more Super Bowl than they did in Part 1 while on a huge contract. So they revamped, restructured, realigned, didn't have to really rebuild, and pushed forward in Phase 2. The Bills are entering Phase 2 of the Josh Allen regime, the Josh Allen era. And the Bengals, depending on what happens with T. Higgins, may be forced early into Phase 2 because that Burrow contract hasn't kicked in yet to the degree that we're seeing with Patrick Mahomes in the cap hit, etc. So what happens with T. Higgins now, with the unrest that's going on there between both sides, or at least certainly from T. Higgins' camp, publicly letting it be known that he wants to be traded. Now, he will be a happy camper if he gets his money. I want to be traded. I want out of here. Here's the contract you're looking for. Great. Love it here. Cannot wait. Appreciate ownership. Appreciate the front office. Everybody that's been a part of this. Thank you so much. He ain't going anywhere if he gets the contract he wants. Those sour feelings can be massaged with money in front of them. There's a lot of things that can be fixed or sewed up with a little bit of cash, with a better contract. And that T. Higgins-Cincinnati Bengals relationship could be just that. But I don't know what the wide... Shut up. Shut up, Alexa. I don't know what the wide receiver market's going to be now, today, tomorrow, on into Thursday. Is this just going to be watching these wide receivers and it just be Gabe Davis? Is that going to be the same thing today? Are the Chiefs going to get something done with a wide receiver? Is it a Darnell Mooney? Is it Curtis Samuel? I've talked about Curtis Samuel a lot over the last couple of years when he signed with the Panthers. And now that he's a free agent again, I'll continue to talk about Curtis Samuel. Point out the fact that he played in Washington with Eric Bieniemy as offensive coordinator, so there is not a, you got to learn the playbook. He had a full year of learning the playbook. You can hand the ball off to him in the backfield. You can do some things with Curtis Samuel that they wanted to do with Kadarius Toney and Mecole Hardman that those guys are not good enough to do at a high level. He is not Deebo Samuel, and he's not going to get paid like Deebo Samuel. But he can offer a dynamism to this offense that Kadarius Toney could not, that Mecole Hardman could not. Darnell Mooney is a guy that's been talked about and discussed. We've talked about him on this show. I would love for them to go out and get both. If they can get Curtis Samuel and Darnell Mooney and draft a wide receiver, feel really good about the wide receiver group at that point. If you've got insert wide receiver here, Curtis Samuel, Darnell Mooney, Rashee Rice, that's 4. Justin Watson, Sky Moore, 5, 6, Kadarius Toney, we'll see what you do. You've got to earn your spot on the roster. Justin Watson, you got to earn your spot on the roster. They can save, $2-3 million if they were to move on from Justin Watson. He doesn't have a guaranteed spot. He's been fine. But let's not act like he wasn't part of the drop problem last year. He's fine as like a 5th receiver. He's not fine if he's starting every game, he's playing 60 snaps every game, and he's getting 1 or 2 targets. Yeah, but he's a really good blocker. Great. Put a tight end out there if that's what he's there for. Same thing with MVS. Great blocker. He does the thing. He does the small things. Awesome. Pay him small things money. Don't pay him big things money. And that's what they were doing with MVS. They were paying him big things money for getting small things. And that's why they moved on. Justin Watson shouldn't be guaranteed a spot on the team. Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney shouldn't have guaranteed spots on the team. So if you can add in a Curtis Samuel, Darnell Mooney, and then draft a wide receiver to go along with Rashee Rice, and then you've got Travis Kelce, or even if it's a tight end, if you bring in a Samuel, Darnell Mooney, have Rashee Rice, go draft a tight end in the first couple of rounds, and throw that guy in there if Noah Gray's your 3rd target. If Noah Gray's your 3rd tight end when you go 13 personnel. Not just because you drafted somebody and therefore he moves up in the hierarchy, but because he's better and he's earned the spot. You become a much better team at that point. But Gabe Davis got more money than I thought he would get. I don't understand a world where Gabe Davis gets more money than Saquon Barkley. And I know that, the whole, the running back market and dime a dozen. Gabe Davis, who would you rather have on the field? Would you rather have on the field Gabe Davis or Saquon Barkley? I mean, that's a level of absurdity between those two. That Gabe Davis is getting $13 million per year and Saquon Barkley is getting, 12.5. That's the pendulum swinging too far one way. And hey, that's great. Jags, go do what you do. You'll spend some more money on Calvin Ridley then, because you wasted money there. If Gabe Davis was that good, he would have had monster numbers this last year with the Bills, stepping into a role of now he's going to have more action. He's going to get more opportunities. Because we know it's not a situation like, let's say Darnell Mooney. It's not that situation. It's not a situation like Curtis Samuel, just throwing some other guys out there that are, free agents. It's not a situation like that where you're going, good God, look who was throwing him the football. He was getting we're not blaming Josh Allen. Just like we're not blaming Patrick Mahomes for MVS and other guys dropping the football. So the wide receiver market is really fascinating. And if teams are just slow playing it and going, I'm not paying that money when I'm looking at wide receivers I can get in the 2nd round for way less money than I'm going to pay you. I'm grading these 2nd and 3rd round wide receivers higher than I'm grading you. So if somebody wants to spend that money, if you get that money from this team or that team or whatever, congratulations. Go get it. But you're not getting it from us. And if team after team after team after team is saying the same thing, then you sit in a position where we are right now, where the wide receivers are simply Gabe Davis. And we'll see if anything else comes down. Nate Taylor tweeted out last night and said Chiefs fans should probably start watching film on Darnell Mooney and Curtis Samuel. And my response is, been there, done that. I'm right there with you. Right there with you. So we'll see what ends up happening. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. I do want to get into the Big 12 tournament starting. Bill Self and the update on Hunter Dickinson and on Kevin McCullough. We will do that on the other side of the break. K-State, what is in front of them, what they have to do this week, what they could do, what it will take for their name to pop up on Sunday. We'll do that as well. We'll get into the Raiders that have continued to recycle backup quarterbacks. We'll get into that and some other things as it relates to the Chiefs. We'll keep you updated on things that are going on around the NFL. We'll talk with Adam Teicher. We'll talk with Myron Metcalf. More Zone right after this. Number of people talking about Hollywood Brown, asking about that. And all right, well, what about Hollywood Brown? We'll see. We'll see. But again, no news, nothing on the wide receiver front right now. So we'll see. There's a report now that Joe Mixon was not actually released by the Bengals. Joe Mixon was traded to the Texans. Well, you want to talk about reporting and the numbers that are coming out with contracts, and then those are quickly amended. That is one heck of an amendment. The day after, I mean, Joe Mixon released, and a lot of criticism that was sent the Bengals' way because they released Joe Mixon after a number of running backs had already signed, after Saquon Barkley and Josh Jacobs and Swift and Jones and Eckler and Singletary and Pollard and Zach Moss, etc. Moss being, the signing with the Bengals. And wow, they waited till all of those guys were signed, and then they released Joe Mixon. That's dirty by the Bengals to do that. Well, it turns out, 10:30 the next day we find out, no, he actually wasn't released. He was traded to the Houston Texans. The Houston Texans who Deontay Foreman and Singletary, et cetera, they need running backs, and apparently Joe Mixon is heading to the Houston Texans as opposed to being released. So the Bengals now have Zach Moss and Chase Brown, which I really like. Man, it's annoying. Again, it's annoying some of the moves that they made, the Bengals. So, and signing Geno Stone, again, annoying. For only, $7 million over a couple of years. So 913-912-4810. Let's talk about the Big 12. Here is Bill Self. This is last night from Hawk Talk. Brian Haney hosting it. Does a fantastic job. I love the voice of Brian Haney. He's got just a really great, it's one of my favorite voices to listen to is Brian Haney. Here he is with Bill Self. And last night, Bill Self giving the update, the status of one Hunter Dickinson and Kevin McCullough.
And Kevin McCullough.
Well, we got great news yesterday with Hunt. There's no surgery. He did not tear his labrum. Actually, he's far better off than what the doctors and the trainers even imagined. So he's got good range of motion. He's already started rehab. All those things. Now that's the good news. Bad news is he's not going to play this week. The good news is he should be practicing full speed by the start of next week. So he'll be available to us with the NCAA tournament, and not only available, but should be fine. I mean, he'll be conditioning and doing non-contact basketball stuff by Thursday or Friday this week, we think. And all indications are pointing to that, and then have contact Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, depending on when we play. If we play Thursday or Friday, but should get at least 3 full days in. So that was the best news, because we were all concerned that he may have something to require surgery, and that's not the case. Kevin tried to play against Houston, as you guys know, and couldn't. He didn't really do anything between the K-State game and the Houston game, but was feeling very good in warm-ups, because we said it'd be a game-time decision. He was feeling very good. And then when he got out there, he didn't feel like he could perform. So he went through one substitution and then came out. Kevin will not play this week. He will not play this week. But that's a positive, too, because everyone thinks that the time off will obviously help him. So he will play in the NCAA tournament as well. Our goal for Kevin is very similar to Hunt in that non-contact stuff, and then by Monday be contact and be practicing and doing that. So that's what we're hopeful for. The thing with Kevin, you can tweak it and obviously create pain and that kind of stuff. But we're thinking a week from today, Kevin will be practicing with us and doing everything, which is so much better than what we've been doing, because we've been only getting maybe one practice in a week on the other times, and Nick can tell you the same thing. So we're the least healthy we've been all year. We have the least number of players available to us we've been all year, but we should be the most healthy we've been in a long time when the NCAA tournament starts. So that's where we're at right now. So is it unbelievably great news? No, but it's only because of the tournament this weekend. It's really the best news we could hope for moving forward into next weekend, when we got to win 2 games.
So when Hunter comes back for the NCAA tournament, it sounds like, if I understood you correctly, he'll be a full go, full speed.
Well, we
Is he
think
going to have discomfort still, do you think? Is range of motion affected?
No,
you
I don't
think he's
so.
good to go?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what they're projecting. So
That's great. That's huge.
as long as he's continues to. Yeah. When I said that, I mean that's what they're projecting. It's not what I'm hoping for. So that's coming from the doctors and reading the MRI and how he respond and the positive read that showed and how he's such within 48 hours the strength and range of motion and all that stuff has been far better than what they probably anticipated Saturday evening.
That's good news. Certainly, it's good news for what the status moving forward for the Jayhawks is for next week. Not great news for this week that neither of them will play. Not a surprise either way, especially when you dislocate a shoulder like Hunter Dickinson. Not a surprise that he's not going to play this week. What I do wonder, and again, Bill Self sounded sincere in talking with Brian Haney, and Brian Haney with the follow-up of, all right, let me just make sure we're clear on this. Let me make sure we're good to go on the information here. They should be healthy. And then Bill Self saying, no, I'm not saying, it's not my opinion, it's what the doctors are saying. It's not what I'm hoping, it's what the doctors are saying is that they'll be good to go for the NCAA tournament. There is also an element that you have to keep in mind whenever coaches are talking, whenever the NCAA tournament is coming up on Sunday. There has to be an element that's added in on the, hey, committee, if you're listening, Hunter Dickinson and Kevin McCullar are going to be fine. In fact, this is good news. We are more healthy than we have been in a long time. Kevin McCullar is going to be healthier than he's been in a long time. Hunter Dickinson's going to be perfectly fine. This time next week, he'll be full practice. He'll be taking on contact. By the end of this week, while we're playing basketball, maybe on Thursday against Baylor, he's going to be going through basketball, practice, and he'll be doing basketball activities. He'll be doing some of those things. And then next week, he'll be full contact. So when we play Thursday or Friday, just know we are going to be healthy, NCAA tournament committee. We'll see what KU does this week and how many games they play. I think they'll end up playing Cincinnati tomorrow. And that game gets underway at, 2 o'clock today after Oklahoma State and UCF get underway at 11:30, an hour from now when those teams start rolling. But, 2 o'clock or so when we're wrapping up here and West Virginia and Cincinnati are playing, the winner of that taking on KU tomorrow night. If KU's playing Cincinnati, I don't know that they gain anything by beating Cincinnati and losing to Baylor, as opposed to even just losing to Cincinnati. What they would gain, I guess, is if McCullar and Hunter Dickinson are not healthy, if there's a setback along the way, which we wouldn't hear about until next week, if there's a setback along the way for either one of those, this is the team they'll be going into the tournament with. I guess that's the value of going out there and of playing those games. And you say, well, what would they lose? Seeding wise, I don't know that they would lose much if you're just looking at the on paper. What they could probably gain is, hey, tournament committee, look, Cincinnati's the number 41 team in the net by, your calculus, your algorithm. They're number 41 in the net. We played a neutral site, semi-neutral, but a neutral site against Cincinnati, and we beat them without Hunter Dickinson, without Kevin McCullar. Just think about that when you're seeding us coming up on Sunday. Maybe that's the value that could be there, because with a loss, if you go back to when Kevin McCullough got hurt and he was in and out of the lineup, including games that he played, so the games that he missed and games that he played, just since he's been going through the not practicing, playing, missing a game, playing, leaving early in the game against Houston, KU 6-5 in those 11 games since then. And if they lose tomorrow, the committee can look at it and go, well, I know you're saying you're going to be healthy with those guys, but Hunter Dickinson's been healthy while Kevin McCullough has not, and he's been in and out of the lineup. And you guys finished 500 in the last 12 games since then. So even if we believe he's healthy, it's a decent enough sample size to say, look how you've actually been playing in that time. That's an issue with KU right now going into the tournament. And it's an issue not from seeding-wise. It's an issue just simply from winning 2 games next weekend. If they even play 2 games this week here at T-Mobile. Without McCullough and without Hunter Dickinson, boy, it would be a yeoman's effort for that team to get by Baylor on Thursday night. It would be tough to get by Cincinnati and West Virginia. It'd be tough to get by West Virginia, too, because those are 2 players that are difference makers. Here's Bill Self talking about the lineup they will be putting out there without their 2 best players.
It's going to look a lot different,
and
we're going to be tiny.
Yeah.
When you really look at it, KJ at the 5 or Parker, but KJ probably starting at the 5, and then you got our power forward Johnny Furphy and small forward Nick Timberlake. So that's what that's probably what it'll look like. And we say all along that there's an expression unfortunately that's come of a tragedy, a huge one. Up in the Boston area, as far as Boston tough, isn't that right, Nick? So Nick is going to show us that, and Marco get a chance to be out there a lot, but as far as scholarship guys, we only got 7.
Right.
So we need to play smart, and we need to play tough, and certainly need to have some fun, and let that ball fly, and hope like heck that we perform at a level that we're capable of. When we do that, we'll be fine.
In that lineup, the tallest player will be Johnny Furphy, because he's actually 2 inches taller than KJ Adams. Now, Adams is, 30 pounds heavier, mainly in his legs, because that guy's got tree trunks. But your starting lineup is DeJuan Harris, Elmarko, Nick Timberlake, Johnny Furphy, and KJ Adams. Yeah, they're going to be small. And if they're going to be small, fire up those threes, man. Timberlake, Furphy, stretching the floor, knock down threes. Take a number of threes. Run, rebound, get out and run. Rebound, run. You got to be a fast break team, a transition team, because it's going to be difficult to go up against teams that may be a little bit bigger. And we'll see. We'll see what happens. It could be a fun version of KU. See what happens without McCullough, without Dickinson out there. Parker Brown will get some run. But as, Bill Self said there, I'm not going to start. It'll be KJ Adams starting at the 5. All right, well, there's something on his plate. And it's not like Hunter Dickinson has played 40 minutes a game when McCullough has missed. So let's also, point that out. Hunter Dickinson has got rest as well when McCullough has missed games. They have had minutes, plenty of minutes on the floor without Dickinson and McCullough out there at the same time. This is not something that is going to be completely foreign to KU and going out there and playing. K-State, it's massive. Tomorrow's game against Texas is a must-win. We talk about must-wins being must-wins when they are actually must-wins. Not the, what's a must-win? It's early February. Chill out. No, this is a must-win for K-State. You've got to knock off Texas. You got to beat Texas tomorrow. And then, can you repeat what happened against Iowa State over the weekend? Now, KenPom has you as a 4-point loss to Texas, so it's going to be a close game, is what KenPom expects it to be, a close game and a low-scoring game. 123 total. Pretty low-scoring game. 63-60 or, 64-60, whatever. Right around there if you're looking at a 4-point spread. So a closer game. K-State's going to have to play some good basketball. They should have the home crowd to a degree because KU's also playing that night. Tomorrow night's session should be packed, jam-packed, with K-State fans and KU fans. Texas fans tomorrow night will still be around because they're watching the women play tonight. Iowa State fans will be around because they're always around, because they're just simply going to always be around. And K-State, if they win, will be taking on Iowa State on Thursday night. I think K-State has to play at minimum to Friday. And I think if they want to feel pretty good, played on Saturday night. And obviously, win on Saturday night, you're good. You don't have to stress on Sunday. But that is a tall task. That is asking a lot for a team that has been inconsistent from possession to possession, let alone game to game. But Jerome Tang's message, he tried to have the message against Cincinnati of this is a tournament game, and they lost. Then he massaged the message a little bit against KU and said this is a Sweet 16 game, and they lost. Well, there's no creating the situation here, the urgency for K-State. It's natural now. It's not created. It is just simply the situation. One game at a time, take care of Texas. Wake up tomorrow morning, get ready for Iowa State. Take care of them, wake up the next night or next day, maybe not, I don't know what your schedule is. Wake up the next day and then get ready for either Baylor or KU or Cincinnati or West Virginia. We'll see. First and foremost, Wednesday. Must-win game tomorrow night for K-State as we start the Big 12 tournament. Coming up about 45 minutes from now is when the Big 12 tournament will get underway. Oklahoma State and Central Florida, about 11:30 or so, and a number of tournaments going on throughout the country with some of these one-bid leagues, and we've seen a number of upsets already. I mean, you want to talk about it being one-bid league, and these aren't bid stealers because these are leagues that were only getting one team as well. NCAA bids by conference tournament seed so far. Morehead State was the 3 seed. They won their conference tournament. Drake was the 2 seed. Congratulations, Drake, in winning their conference tournament. They don't have to worry about Sunday. Indiana State's sitting there sweating it if they're going to get in. I think Missouri Valley should get 2 bids. I think Indiana State has proved it. I think it would be awesome for the Missouri Valley to see Indiana State and Drake in there. Drake doesn't have to worry about it. Neither does Drake.
Very true.
Yes.
I was worrying over the weekend.
Yes, you know what? It came away with the victory. Got it done against Larry Blurd, against Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Some of the best nicknames we've seen come from the Indiana State big man. Stetson was a 2 seed. James Madison was a 2 seed. Sanford was a 1 seed. Longwood is a 5 seed that won their conference tournament. We got Gonzaga, St. Mary's tonight. Both those teams will be in the NCAA tournament, so there's not a bid thief on the line tonight. But we'll see if there are any bid thieves in the power conferences, the Power 5/6. Throw in the AAC, call it 7 different conferences. We'll find out if there are any bid thieves there. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll continue rolling. More Zone right after this.
Hey folks, it's time to march into Greenlight and see all the new specials that are going to be springing up all month. You can go to greenlightdispensary.com and see all the amazing new specials, and then go to one of their 4 Casey area locations. That's Bannister Road and 435, Nolan Road and Independence. 135th and State Line is right down the street from here, and then Harrisonville, Missouri as well. They want to thank you for voting them as the #1 dispensary in all of the state of Missouri, as well as the #1 loyalty program in the state of Missouri. I love it because you can use those points on any of Greenlight's products, not ones that they choose when you check out. They have knowledgeable bud tenders that can help you with any of your questions, whether you're a seasoned vet or a rookie. Ordering online is the best way to guarantee that your product will be available. Use greenlightdispensary.com to place an order for pickup via the drive-thru or grab-and-go window. Mention A10 sent you for 20% off your first visit to any KC area Greenlight location. That's at State Line, Independence, Bannister, and Harrisonville. And remember, every purchase you make racks up points in your wallet to be redeemed for product in store. That's at the #1 dispensary in the state of Missouri as voted by you. And you can find them online at greenlightdispensary.com. That's greenlightdispensary.com.
All right, hanging out here on this Tuesday edition. We'll talk with Adam Teicher coming up at 11 o'clock, ESPN, our Chiefs insider, Adam Teicher, and then Myron Metcalf coming up at noon, college basketball insider. He is presented by Jackson County CASA. We will talk with him coming up at noon. 913-912-4810. A couple of news and nuggets coming around the NFL. Josh Allen has restructured his contract. He has freed up almost $17 million for the Bills' cap situation as they re-signed A.J. Epinesa and made some other moves as well. So the Bills, trying to continue to, put their team together. They're trying. They're going to have 53 players out there, but putting their team together and signing some free agents, even though, letting a number of guys go. But Josh Allen restructuring his contract, $17 million they have freed up for the Buffalo Bills. And it came down yesterday, but the Raiders signing Gardner Minshew, The Falcons signing Kirk Cousins. I just love that, if you're Antonio Pierce, I understand it. If you're Antonio Pierce, you're taking over the Raiders, and the last thing you want to do is say, you know what, let's just go out there and suck. Let's go out there and let's lose. Let's be bad. And let's get a great quarterback. If we can do that, we'll be better off. Raiders sitting with the 13th pick. Then maybe they trade a bunch and move up and get a quarterback. Maybe somebody slides there at number 13 and they're good to go. And they find somebody. And Mahomes went 10th. So it's not like you can't find a franchise quarterback there in the teens. But they're sitting 13th. And they signed Gardner Minshew, which is just a retread of Garoppolo and a lesser version of Derek Carr. They bring in, for a lot of money, Christian Wilkinson. And they have set themselves up to be middle of the pack. They have set themselves up to almost make the playoffs. They have set themselves up to never really be in position to go and get a franchise quarterback early on in the draft. Unless you trade a lot. Unless you trade a number of pieces or draft picks to move up and grab one. But Gardner Minshew, and it's funny, the highlights of Gardner Minshew sometimes makes you think that he could be the guy, but he's a backup quarterback. He's a backup quarterback. And this reminds me of going back to 2007. Was it 2007 Hard Knocks with the Chiefs? When the storyline around that team was who's going to start, Damon Hewitt or Brodie Croyle? Here's the drama. I mean, Herm Edwards and this team, the drama here is Bernard Pollard twerking in the locker room, Tom Bahali attempting to rap, Turk and Tank out in some wheat field just hanging out for some reason. And who's going to start, Damon Hewitt or Brodie Croyle? And that's the feel of this to me of Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell. Who's going to win that job? And Minshew's a good backup quarterback. But if you thought he was better than average or even that for the Colts, you weren't really watching. And the Raiders offense has a cap on what they can be. Without Josh Jacobs, adding in Gardner Minshew, did they get better defensively? Sure, whatever. Did they get better at quarterback? I don't know. They got cooler. I don't know Aiden O'Connell at all. Aiden O'Connell. Don't even know his name, apparently. I don't know Aiden O'Connell. And I don't know Jimmy Garoppolo. But they got cooler with Gardner Minshew, right? That's the feel, is that, Gardner Minshew's... I would love to have Gardner Minshew as a backup quarterback. That'd be great. I don't want him as my starting quarterback. And if he's my starting quarterback, he's going to be just good enough to get us beat and not make the playoffs. He's going to be just good enough to get us the 16th pick in the draft, 15th pick in the draft, whatever. He's going to be just good enough to do that. You win a game from time to time, he has a really good game, and you feel great about it. And the Raiders, watching the Chiefs go to their home and win the Super Bowl, they then go and get Gardner Minshew. All right, breaking news in the NFL. This one sucks. The Falcons are signing Darnell Mooney. Mooney's getting 3 years, $39 million. I mean, woo! Wow. Okay. All right. It's getting $13 million per year. All right. Well, wide receiver market. No wonder teams didn't go out and immediately sign, those wide receivers yesterday. I mean, Gabe Davis is getting $13 million per year. Darnell Mooney just got $13 million per year. I thought he might have been 7 or 8 per year. 3 years, 24 for Darnell Mooney. Giving him almost $40 million over 3 years. Man. We'll see what Curtis Samuel's going to ask for. We'll see what Hollywood Brown will want. If you're Tyler Boyd, you're like, hell yeah. All right, we need to take a time out, but that breaking news there. We'll talk with Adam Teicher on the other side of the break, see if the Chiefs will be involved in some of these other players, but that Darnell Mooney number certainly changes the perspective a little bit on some of the other wide receivers that may be out there. We'll take a time out, come back, more Zone next. The Big 12 tournament field is set, and TicketsForLess.com is your home for the best selection of tickets for every session. Shop transparent, upfront prices on all Big 12 tickets, including all sessions or single-session passes. If you're a fan of Kansas or Kansas State, you're looking for Wednesday Session 3, which begins at 6 o'clock with Texas taking on K-State, followed by the KU game against whether that be West Virginia or Cincinnati. Shop the best selection of tickets to the men's and women's tournament from Tickets for Less, the official ticket marketplace of the Big 12 Conference.
food to Midwestern families since 1958. Enjoy healthier food, more free time, free delivery, and better value. Go to GuaranteedFoods.com.
All right, we'll continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you. Drake hanging out with us. We head up until 2 o'clock. Myron Metcalf will be our guest coming up at noon. An hour from now, let's talk with Adam Teicher. He is our Chiefs insider from ESPN. He is also presented by Twin Peaks. Step up your lunch game at Twin Peaks. Enjoy light yet hearty combos put together for you. Available at an awesome price. Adam, welcome into the show. How are you, sir?
Good, Jason. How you doing today?
I've been good. How have you been the last 24 hours? Busy, working the phones, trying to keep track of everything going on, creating Excel spreadsheets. What's the life of Adam Teicher when 24 hours ago the legal tampering period started?
Well, rumor had it that free agency started yesterday, but around here I couldn't see any evidence of that. So
they signed James Winchester.
That might be for the other 31 teams. I don't know about the Chiefs, but hey, they got some good work done over the weekend and even last week with Drew Tranquill. So I think they're okay sitting out this phase right here.
If you're just joining us, you didn't hear the end of the segment in the last hour. Darnell Mooney signed with the Atlanta Falcons. He's getting 3 years, $39 million. 26 of that 39 is fully guaranteed. So that is yet another wide receiver that I think is a nice filler wide receiver, nice okay piece to a team, but I wouldn't build a wide receiver room around him. That's getting $13 million per year. Gabe Davis got $13 million from the Jags. Chose Jacksonville over the Bears. Reporting is the Bears offered him almost the same thing. He chose Jacksonville, wanted to return to Florida. He went to UCF from Florida. And Darnell Mooney getting $13 million per year from the Falcons. I got to say, Adam, I wanted Darnell Mooney to be on the Chiefs, but I didn't think it'd be for $13 million per year. And if he's going for that amount of money, I'm understanding, and I get why the Chiefs may have said, yeah, thanks, but no thanks, man. Somebody's going to give you 13. Hey, you know what? Salute. Best of luck to you, Darnell. Go get it done.
No, I'm with you. I think he would have been a nice add to the Chiefs' receiving room. That's a nice guy to have on your team if you're the Chiefs. But not at any price, certainly, and probably not at that price. But hey, let's circle back to this point in time. In a month or so, when the draft is over, okay, what does it look like then for the Chiefs at wide receiver? Mm-hmm. And did they end up getting a veteran or two veterans to kind of fill in that room? I don't know, but so I think maybe to judge this, we need to wait for a little while and see what the next step is for them at wide receiver. But right now, I think I agree with you that maybe not at that price. Yeah. I'm okay passing on that.
Yeah.
That signing.
It's like the angel devil. It's like this, trying to look at both sides of the coin, and that, boy, the Chiefs wide receiver room was a disaster, and they have to make moves to fix that. And Brett Veach, typically, when there is a positional group that is subpar and less than stellar, he will typically go out and throw different resources, whether that be trade or free agency or draft picks, like he did with the defense a number of years ago after 2018 with the offensive line after the 2020 Super Bowl. And hey, that's going to be the same thing with the wide receiver market here. There's that side of it, but then also the other side of, yeah, but it doesn't mean you just throw money around to anybody. It doesn't mean that somebody's out there, so let's give, would I give $13 million to Darnell Mooney or $18 million to Calvin Ridley? I don't know what Calvin Ridley's going to go for, but, let's just say if that was the choice, yeah, I'll choose Calvin Ridley and $18 million. I just don't know what that's going to be. I understand they need help, and I would have loved to have Darnell Mooney on the team, but I'm with you. Let's see what happens when free agency is over and when the draft happens. But there's also a level where I don't think the Chiefs should just simply go in and panic and go, I don't care. Mooney, what do you want? We'll sign you for whatever you want. Curtis Samuel, what do you want? We'll sign you for whatever you want. We've got to fix this wide receiver room.
Yeah. I mean, there's some guys out there who can play, and Curtis Samuel, I'm probably less excited about. That's more of a gadget type guy, and less of a true wide receiver, which is what I think the Chiefs need most right now. But let's see what happens here. Let's see what they do before the draft and during the draft, and hard to see them going through adding only rookies at this point at wide receiver. I think they'll have to bring in a veteran or two at some point. But, hey, there'll be some guys cut at some point here, too. So, maybe get another good year out of whoever that might be. So, it's not time to panic right now, for sure.
Visiting with Adam Teicher from ESPN. Let's talk about Chris Jones and the contract that he got. Well, I tell you what, it's contrary to what I thought it was going to be, Adam. It is a lot more money than I think the Chiefs were willing to go, than I thought the Chiefs were willing to go. What do you take away? What's your reaction? What do you learn from the Chiefs giving this massive deal to Chris Jones?
Yeah, we talked about somebody was going to have to give in on this deal. It was going to have to be the Chiefs or Chris Jones or whatever, and I thought it would be Chris Jones. I really did. I thought that the Chiefs would hold their position and do it that way. But no, they were the ones who gave in, and I'm a little puzzled why you wouldn't give him that contract last year. Assuming that's very similar to the contract he wanted last year. I don't know why you wouldn't have done it last year, but hey, they got it done, and I guess that's the most important thing. But it is kind of interesting that the Chiefs were the ones in the end that sort of gave in.
Is there a message here that why Chris Jones may be different than others that they've got to and said this is the end point? We're not meeting you there, especially last year when, like you said, they offered him 2 for, 54.5, 50, whatever, 54, 57 around there, but 50 something, 2 for that. I got the numbers on a different piece of paper. But is there a message there that they offered him that last year and said, take it or leave it, we'll play this year with you, and then this year it's, hey, here's 5 for 160, here's 95 guaranteed in the first 3 years?
Yeah. Well, it's stand your ground. If you're one of those guys the Chiefs feel like they can't live without, stand your ground. I don't know how many other guys other than Mahomes and Kelsey there are that fit into that category. But, Tyreek Hill, as we know, didn't fit into that category, at least not in the Chiefs' mind. So, it is kind of interesting that how this went. And, certainly the Chiefs obviously felt like he was one of the foundational pieces that they couldn't live without him, along with those other couple guys. So they felt like they had to go that extra mile to get it done.
How much was this the three-peat sort of carrot sitting out there, and how much is this? If they ended up losing to the 49ers, that they still would have got this deal done?
I don't see that at all. I really don't. I don't think that's part of the equation at all. I've said this before. And it's really true. The Chiefs aren't going to push all their chips into 1 year at the expense of future years. They like this window. They think the window with Mahomes is going to be open every year. And rather than, endanger their chances to win in 25, 26, maybe even 27 by going all in now, I don't think that's not something the Chiefs want. They'd rather win in 25 and 26 and not win in 24 than three-peat and then lose out the next 2 years. So I don't think that has much of a bearing on it. That's just totally opposite of how the Chiefs have operated. And, hey, they went beyond what I thought, and a lot of people thought they would go for Chris Jones, but I don't know that it was significantly higher than where they would have gone otherwise. I don't know that. And so I just can't say that. I think if maybe they were doing that, they would have gone in for Mooney as well, and they'd be making some moves right now that would indicate, hey, yeah, we're pushing all our chips in here. The thing about Chris Jones is there's no reason to think that his skills are going to be declining anytime soon. I think it's reasonable to expect the Chiefs could get maybe 3 good years out of Chris Jones from this point forward. So, I don't see it as being a 1-year deal for them, no.
And I'm with you. And the player that I've looked at, because I was asked about this on Sunday, it's like, all right, is this all about the Chiefs three-peating? And I said, if this was all about the Chiefs three-peating, then L'Jarius Sneed would be on this team next year regardless, no matter what. You don't trade L'Jarius Sneed if you're going all into three-peat. You tell them, hey, look, L'Jarius, we're going to give it one more run. We're going to play on the franchise tag with you, and then you're going to be a 28-year-old free agent, but you're going to get $20 million this year. You know that you've made 4 in your career. We're going to give you 20 this year. Go out and play that well. Then you're going to get another 30 or 40 or whatever in the open market, but we're going for a three-peat this year, and this is what we're going to do. That would be going all in for making sure that you're going to do it. If L'Jarius Sneed is gone and Chris Jones is back, then that's just simply strategy that they would have taken even if they lost to the 49ers.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And, so while the Chris Jones move might look like it, I don't take it that way, and I don't think it is. But while it might look like that, their other moves don't look like that. This is not the other moves are not the maneuvers of a team that says, well, we got to win this year and forget about the future. We want to win this year.
Visiting with Adam Teicher, I also yesterday gave credit to Chris Jones and his representatives. And I know we made fun of them and we had fun at their expense. And, the scene that was there against the Lions when they're sitting up there in the suite, on either side of Chris Jones, and Chris Jones having to work as hard as he did just to get some of that money and make what he would have made anyway. The sitting out, probably not the smartest move. So the strategy from that standpoint, not great. But last year, if Chris Jones would have signed the 2 years, $54.5 million, and $54.5 was fully guaranteed, that was the extension, it would have given him a 3-year deal for $77.1 million with what they paid him last year in 2023, and then the next 2 years. So he would have got 3 years, $77.1 million. Instead, Adam, with getting the 22.6 last year, and he's already made, that was the cash for a year ago, he's now going to get 95 over the next 3. So we got $117.6 million in 4 years. So we essentially added 1 year for $40 million guaranteed by not signing that 2 for 54. And mainly because, Adam, he bet on himself. And he bet that when it came time to, I'm no longer under contract, Brett, and the front office, and Clark, I'm now a free agent. Tyreek Hill was under contract, and you could have got draft picks back for him, and you did. I'm not under contract, and now I'm an unrestricted free agent. You're not getting a first and a third and anything else for me. You're going to get a comp pick. What do you say about meeting me at my spot? And he bet on himself, and he won. And he got a lot more money out of it.
There's no doubt about it. He bet on himself, and he won big, I think. I think this is a significant deal for Chris Jones. And, he also wanted to stay. He got that out of the deal as well. So, Chris Jones, to me, the clear winner in terms of where they were last year and where they are now. And, that doesn't mean the Chiefs can't eventually win this deal, too. I mean, if they keep winning Super Bowls with Chris Jones playing well, the Chiefs are going to be winners here, too. But in terms of the negotiation itself, I think, Chris Jones got what he wanted.
Do you like the strategy of taking care of Chris Jones and making sure he's a Chief, and then moving on from L'Jarius Sneed, of choosing between those two, the cornerback, the shutdown cornerback, or what Chris Jones means to the defense? Do you like the strategy of the Chiefs of saying Chris Jones is our guy moving forward, and we'll figure out what we need to figure out in the secondary?
Well, yes, I do like that for this reason alone. I feel like L'Jarius Sneed is replaceable. Trent McDuffie's have played really well, as we know, last year, and I think he can kind of slide into that L'Jarius Sneed role if that's what the Chiefs choose for him. And Josh Williams played well, particularly toward the end of the season. I think Josh Williams might be ready if that's what the Chiefs do for a bigger role next year, maybe even a starting role. And but what are you going to do without Chris Jones? What's this going to look like without Chris Jones? And we've had that in small little pieces, when he's been hurt or when he sat out the Lions game. But we don't know what it looks like over the long haul. So I just, I feel like the Chiefs can field a reasonable semblance of their defensive team from last year now, whereas without flipping it and keeping Sneed and not doing that with Jones, well, what do we got here? Over 17 games plus, preferably 2 or 3 or 4 more. What is that going to look like? And I think the Chiefs were a little bit wondering about that answer as well.
To me, it's a little bit like you go to a restaurant and you order the family style. It's the sides. It's like, all right, so I've got my main dish, and I know the family style, it's going to be a la carte. It's going to be a little more expensive, but I'm making this plate, this entree a little bit better. I'm making this entree a little bit better. I'm making this entree a little bit better over there. So yes, on its surface, the price is more expensive for the family style, but it's also helping others out. And I look at it and say, at what point would there have been a pull the cord and eject? I mean, you can't just pay him $50 million a year, right? You can't pay him $140 million guaranteed over 3 years. Like, there's a limit. But by Chris Jones being on the field, you've now increased the production of George Karlaftis, of what you may get from FAU, what you may get from somebody else on the defensive line, the secondary as well. And a couple plays that I pointed out, and they were closers for the Chiefs in the playoffs and Super Bowl. The last throw from Josh Allen, L'Jarius Sneed was on the field. And if Chris Jones wasn't, that's a touchdown. And the last throw from Brock Purdy, L'Jarius Sneed was on the field. And if Chris Jones wasn't, that's a touchdown. And those two, and people can point out some others and like, yeah, but Chris Jones is on the field here and L'Jarius Sneed did this to Tyreek Hill. Certainly, yes, he is. Nobody's saying he sucks. Nobody's saying he's not good. He's really good. It's just L'Jarius Sneed can take away one player, one really, really good player that can impact an offense, and Chris Jones can wreck a game plan at times for an offense.
Yeah, so I think this is definitely a more well-rounded defense now, with Chris Jones and probably or possibly not L'Jarius Sneed. But, I agree. I think the Chiefs it's reasonable to expect them to be at least close to what they were last year defensively now than it would have been had Chris Jones gone off to Vegas or wherever he was going.
Yeah. And by the way, you mentioned that. I was going to bring it up, but I'll bring it up right now. The deal that was made yesterday, that was like, okay, they're giving Christian Wilkins that much money. The Raiders are. Christian Wilkins signs for 4 for $110, $27.5 million per year. My initial reaction to that, Adam, was, all right, they would have paid whatever it took to get Chris Jones. If he was out, they would have paid whatever it took to get Chris Jones. They would have been the highest bidder, and Chris Jones would be wearing black and silver right now, and that would make me have even worse acid reflux.
They would have pushed a blank contract across the table and said, "Chris, fill this in and sign it, and then let us know what, and we'll figure it out from there." I figure that's what they would have done, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, almost $28 million for Christian Wilkins. I mean, that's fine. I mean, he's a good player, but I mean, give me Chris Jones at 31.5 over 28 for Christian Wilkins. So Adam Teicher's our guest from ESPN. Is the timeline still the same, you think, for L'Jarius Sneed? They're carrying that franchise tag cap right now, and maybe that's keeping them from making some moves in the free agency. Yeah. We see the Carlton Davis move from the Bucs trading him to the Lions, which sucks because that seemed to be a suitor for L'Jarius Sneed. But is the timeline still you get to the draft and that's sort of the deadline, or should it be moved up a little bit if the Chiefs want to add some veterans here or there to their team and help out with the wide receiver group and the offensive line and defensive line? They still have to make some moves there. Should the L'Jarius Sneed timeline maybe be moved up?
Yeah, well, ideally they would have got it done yesterday because that's when everybody's got the most amount of cash, right? So that's the ideal time to do it. And you're right. I mean, he's counting almost $20 million against their salary cap, and that's money the Chiefs would, I'm sure, like to be spending right now if they could. So, ideally it would be done already. But I do think that the draft is the true deadline, that if they can wait till then and still potentially get this done. I'm guessing that maybe the return for that in terms of draft picks might be a little less because maybe the bidding comes down at that point. Some teams are going to be out of cash. So, I think ideally you would have done it already. But I don't think I'm not willing to say he's going to be playing for the Chiefs or nobody next year. Yeah. And one more thing about the Lions, just because they traded for Carlton Davis, does that necessarily take them out of the L'Jarius Sneed sweepstakes? I don't know. I mean, maybe, but they needed a couple guys, I think, and they were short on both sides really. So maybe they decide, hey, Carlton Davis has only got one more year left. We can sign Sneed to a contract, a long-term deal on our own terms, and maybe they'll decide that they still want to do that. So I wouldn't necessarily say that the Lions are dead in terms of need.
Yeah, and to that point, I mean, the Lions had 2 third-rounders. So they traded one of their third-rounders, which was actually their latest one. So they traded pick number 92 to Tampa. They still have the early third-rounder, which was from Minnesota, still left over from the Hawkinson deal. So they've got pick number 61 and 73. So in theory, they could still throw the second-rounder to the Chiefs and say, here's pick number 61, and they can say, we traded a second-rounder, we traded the end of the third round, we got 2 fifth-rounders back, or 2 sixth-rounders back, and we got Carlton Davis and L'Jarius Sneed. And we got one of the better cornerback duos now moving forward. So you're right. I mean, they absolutely could still be there because they had that extra third rounder in that TJ Hawkinson deal. So it's not like they're sitting like the Miami Dolphins where they don't have a lot of draft picks. And it's like, well, I guess, do we trade some more picks here? They've got a number of picks to work with. And they know also, Adam, like they're that close. When you're that close and you haven't won, there's a different sort of longing and hunger to get it done and sort of what is it going to take? Let's do it because we want to know what it's like to hold the Lombardi Trophy where, some other teams have won many trophies and, the Bills are longing to get that one. And that's why I understand a couple of years ago when they sort of went all in and said, we want to win the trophy. This is a window. We're going to do it. And we're giving ourselves a 2-year window to go and do that. And we understand the offseason of 2024, we may be in dire straits, but we've never won it. So let's go do it. And I think it's a different sort of view if you're the Lions and say, that second rounder, who we getting for that second rounder, or we get L'Jarius Sneed and we have cap space to pay him. Now we look at it and say we might be the favorites in the NFC to go win this thing.
Yeah, and the key is that the Lions, rightly so, think they're that close. I mean that this could be the move, or these could be the moves, counting the Davis trade that push them over the hump there. So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely I can see him making more sense still, even at this point for the Lions, than maybe some of these other teams you're hearing about that Sneed wouldn't necessarily be the final piece.
Visiting with Adam Teicher. He is from ESPN, presented by Twin Peaks. We'll take a timeout, come back, continue rolling, talk to Adam Teicher about some things the Chiefs will try to get accomplished. We'll look at the offensive line and some other issues as well. We'll take a timeout, come back, continue with more from Chiefs insider from ESPN, Adam Teicher, next. Man, if you're out there, you're feeling sluggish, maybe you're feeling tired, maybe the off-season or at least the free agency period starting yesterday hasn't really got your juices flowing or anything. I don't know. Maybe you don't feel the same pep as you did when you were in your 20s and 30s. Sleep patterns may be off, brain fog setting in at different times of the day, lower libido. You're not seeing gains in the weight room, seeing gains in the waistline. Look, those all may be signs of low testosterone. And Heartland Men's Health can likely help with those symptoms. Guys start losing their testosterone as they age, and it's part of the natural aging process. Year over year, in your 30s and beyond, your body is producing less and less of that natural testosterone. I went to Heartland Men's Health because I didn't feel the same way that I used to. I thought it was just, something you're going to have to deal with, right? Brain fog, didn't have the same energy, feeling sluggish, get off the air at 2 o'clock and think, wow, am I going to be able to get a nap in this afternoon? Instead, getting off the air at 2 o'clock and then boom, heading home. And now little man and I are playing baseball, football, basketball, hanging out with Juliet, doing all those different things and activities that, I was pumped to do a number of years ago. And thinking about, when I'm in my 20s, this is what I'm going to be doing with my kids. And not being able to do that because simply not having the energy. Spending 4 hours talking and things like that can sap you of your energy. It's not just, running around and things like that. Mentally, you get a little tired, and everybody else goes through those things with your work, and you get home and you might feel tired and not know why that may be the case. It could be because of low testosterone. Go to Heartland Men's Health, schedule a consult. They'll do your lab work, have your results within 30 minutes. Licensed medical provider can review your results with you, discuss your options, help you make the best decision for you together. The cost of the appointment's only $99, which includes medical consult, T, and PSA test. If you sign up for testosterone the day of your appointment, your visit is free. So give them a call, 844-447-6600. That's 844-447-6600. Or visit heartlandmenshealth.com. All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. We'll talk with Myron Metcalf, also from ESPN, coming up at noon, College Basketball Insider. Right now talking with ESPN's Adam Teicher, our Chiefs Insider, presented by Twin Peaks. Enjoy your next lunch break with Twin Peaks. Adam, let's talk about the offensive line. We talked wide receiver. We talked Chris Jones, L'Jarius Sneed a little bit there. Congrats to Nick Allegretti, who gets a 3-year, $16 million deal from the Commanders. And you know, Adam, I figured he would get an opportunity to start somewhere. You know, the Chiefs have said they have 6 starting offensive linemen, that Allegretti's a starter, just hadn't had an opportunity. And with Joe Thuney still being on the team and Trey Smith still being on the team, that somebody deservingly was going to give him a chance. And I'm happy for Allegretti. I'm sad for the Chiefs because he's been one of my favorite players to watch because he's just simply solid. But what do you think of the Chiefs and now trying to find that backup swing interior offensive lineman and Allegretti heading to the Commanders?
Yeah, he was kind of a luxury for the Chiefs because they did feel like, particularly his last couple years with them, they felt like he was starter quality. You know, he was that kind of player. And, you know, he wasn't going to beat out any of the 3 guys they had starting in the interior, so it wasn't that kind of player, but he's still a very good player who could start for him and they could win games with him. That's how the Chiefs looked at him. But they weren't going to be able to sign him for that kind of money, not as a backup. So, yeah, it was time for him to move on. And you know, now the Chiefs have to, you know, find somebody to develop. You know, this is where maybe the miss on Darian Kennard kind of comes home to roost, that you know, that'd be a perfect guy to slot into that role right now if he could, but looks like that's not going to happen. So, yeah, the Chiefs have some work to do building up some depth there.
What do you think they end up doing? I don't know what the future is going to hold with you know, Thuney this year and one more year on his contract. They obviously can move on after this year if they want to and take a dead cap hit. They can, you know, play through the life of the contract. Trey Smith has 1 year left. We know that on his contract, and what happens after that, we'll see. But man, I think the guard market this year kind of tied the Chiefs' hand a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, Kevin Dotson got $16 million per year. Jonah Jackson got $17 million per year. And Robert Hunt signed with the Panthers for 5 years, $100 million. It's an extra year at the same exact price that the Chiefs are paying Jawan Taylor to play tackle. They're paying Robert Hunt to play guard. Like, the guard market all of a sudden turned into the tackle market somehow.
Yeah, I think Trey Smith made himself some money yesterday.
Yes.
No doubt he got a big raise. If not immediately, then at some point, yes, I agree. And you probably, I imagine the Chiefs looked at that and just started smacking their heads and saying, what are we doing here? And you know, that was, you know, I think getting to maybe re-sign some of those guys who were up at the end of next year was going to be one of their goals, you know, and certainly Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith would have been high on that list. But now, I don't know. Now maybe you're going to have to choose and say, well, we can afford one of them, we can't afford the other one. And so don't discount the Chiefs maybe drafting in an early round an interior offensive lineman to kind of groom and maybe step into one of those spots next year in 2025.
I don't know much about Caliendo. I know the Chiefs like him. Is he a guy that can step into the Allegretti role and be someone that can play both guards, snap the ball if need be? Because that was the value of Allegretti too, is he could play center if anything happened to Creed Humphrey. Can Caliendo be that guy, or are the Chiefs going to go out and have to pay somebody on the free agent market, or as you said, draft in the first couple days?
Yeah, I think that's going to be one of the goals of the off season. Maybe is to see exactly where he is in his development, meaning Caliendo at this point. You know, to me, you look how the Chiefs turn the bottom of their roster, and I'm including the practice squad on this. You know, they don't keep guys around that they don't for long that they don't have real hopes for, that they don't see some real developmental potential. They've kept Caliendo around for a little while now, for a couple of years now, without him playing much, and that, that should tell you something, that they feel like there's something there to work with. Doesn't mean he's going to develop into that kind of player, but they feel like there's a chance at least with him. So he's a guy who could go into that role. Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see where it goes with him. Maybe you want to have some depth just in case it doesn't work out with him. But, yeah, I think he's a guy who could fill that role if depending on what the Chiefs think.
Do you think the Chiefs are going to be in on the some of the bigger name tackles that are out there? Tyron Smith, David Bakhtiari is now a free agent, but you're talking about two guys that when they are healthy are really good, but when they are healthy is roughly few and far between, especially for David Bakhtiari. I think he's played a total of like 16 games in the last 3 years combined. Tyron Smith has played more, but again, he's often injured. Trent Brown is out there, Mekhi Becton, Jonah Williams, a lot of right tackles really that are on the market. Do the Chiefs go that route? Do they say Wanya Morris is our guy? Do they re-sign Donovan Smith and say we just won a Super Bowl with that? Do they make a run in the first round and say we're going to take care of the tackle spot? What do you do with what do you think the Chiefs do with the opening on the left side of the offensive line right now that currently you can write in Wanya Morris?
Yeah, I think there's all those options are legitimate. I mean, I can see the Chiefs doing. I don't know about Donovan Smith coming back, but I think the rest of those things I think are legitimate options for the Chiefs. With Bakhtiari and Smith, the cost has to be right there. I don't see the Chiefs going big money on either one of those guys or anyone else, for that matter. What I can tell you about Wanya Morris is this: there's no disappointment on the Chiefs' part with him. I think he's the guy that they thought they were getting. Maybe there's some questions about his readiness, as opposed to disappointment about how he's playing or how he's developing. So I could very easily see him being the starting left tackle next year. I mean, I think I'd call him the leader. Not just in the clubhouse, but of all the options you mentioned, I think that's maybe the most logical. But, hey, if the Chiefs come across somebody in the draft they feel can help them, they could and should go ahead and draft that guy because, that's not so solid where they couldn't use some help there. And, hey, I would take a Bakhtiari if you think he's healthy and at a reasonable cost. I wouldn't waste any time going to do that if I were the Chiefs. So, they have some options out there. I think most of them maybe at a lower cost, so it probably is realistic to think that there's going to be somebody else in here, at least giving Morris some competition. But I do think that the Chiefs aren't panicking and saying, "Well, we got to do something at those spots."
There's so much talk about wide receivers and the weapons for the Chiefs on offense, and rightfully so, of seeing who played for this team last year, who's available this year, who they can go out and get, the draft and all of that stuff. Wide receivers and offense really, predominantly you look at it and say, what are the weapons on offense? Because Travis Kelce isn't quote-unquote a wide receiver, but he's one hell of a weapon for the Chiefs. Isaiah Pacheco, we talked about him out of the backfield. How do you use Pacheco more besides just handing the ball off? I bring that up because if I'm looking at adding weapons to an offense, and there is a market that says Gabe Davis is worth $39 million over 3 years and Darnell Mooney is $39 million over 3 years, then there's a world that I would love to live in, Adam, where the Chiefs signed Saquon Barkley for 3 years and $37 million that the Eagles gave him and say, yeah, we're adding a weapon. I know it's not a wide receiver, but our offense just got a hell of a lot better by putting him out there as well. And Pacheco is good, and Saquon, all of that stuff. Like, we've added somebody, and who says we can't have Pacheco and Barkley, back there, or split Barkley out, who can catch 100 balls in a season. If somebody's paying Gabe Davis 3 for $39, then Saquon Barkley is worth well more than that. That's the running back market, the pendulum swinging too far the other way.
Yeah, what happened yesterday with the running backs in terms of all of them or all of the main guys being signed was that had to be disappointing to the Chiefs. They're going to need somebody besides Pacheco. I think a lot of those guys it would have been nice fits for what the Chiefs are doing now. Could they have afforded them? Could they have afforded those guys, or would they have wanted to? Probably not those guys at the top of the market, the Josh Jacobs and Saquon Barkley, but maybe Aaron Jones, maybe Austin Eckler. I think Austin Eckler would have been a great fit for the Chiefs, for what they like to do and how they use their backs. So, that was discouraging. And now, the Chiefs probably will sign another veteran back, but will he be capable of helping them out in a way that those other guys could have? So I was thinking the Chiefs would be in on one of these name running backs, maybe not at a price like we saw yesterday again, but still, I thought they'd be in on somebody, but. So I think this has got to be a disappointment to them,
Yeah, I looked at Gibson and Zach Moss and Austin Eckler, guys like that I thought would be, nice fits as backup running backs, fill the role of a Jerick McKinnon or a Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I think one of the things it does is it certainly increases the possibility of Clyde Edwards-Helaire returning to the Chiefs. I mean, on a one-year deal or something like that. I don't think he's going to get any crazy amount of money. It might be just a minimum contract for 1 year for Clyde Edwards-Helaire, depending on what he may get out there. I don't know. I would say that it doesn't mean he's going to return, but I think the percentage chance of him returning has at least gone up after seeing some of the numbers yesterday with the running back market.
Yeah, I would agree. And if you're the Chiefs, you're probably more agreeable to that now, probably, than you would have been a couple of days ago, knowing where this market was, not knowing where the running back market was headed. So, yeah, it's possible. I'm quite sure the Chiefs will draft somebody. So they'll have a rookie in here as well. But I think that was. I'm with you. I think if you're going to give $13 million to Gabe Davis, give it to Saquon Barkley or Josh Jacobs. But that's not. Even an option for the Chiefs anymore.
Yeah, not at all. Last one for you. Do you think one of the things that I looked at besides wide receiver, and we're talking about adding weapons, and I had mentioned some running backs, but some tight ends out there. Before Hunter Henry got signed with the Patriots, I would have liked the Chiefs to sign him. Noah Fant got $10.5 million per year to re-sign with the Seahawks. Colby Parkinson was a guy that I thought could be an upgrade of Blake Bell, that when you go 13 personnel, he's a really good blocker, but also he's a much better receiver than Blake Bell. That, all right, you'd have Kelsey and you'd have two other guys that, in Noah Gray and Colby Parkinson. Gerald Everett is out there. So, he's kind of the last one in terms of tight ends. Do you think that might be a place that the Chiefs, if they say the wide receiver market's too expensive, let's go get Gerald Everett and we'll have three tight ends and Kelsey, Everett, and Noah Gray. And those guys will be out there, and we'll, have Rashee Rice and figure out some things in the draft. And that's maybe more cost-effective in adding to the offense.
Yeah, that's one way for the Chiefs to do it. I mean, they've done that at times, gone tight end heavy and used a lot of tight ends, and that's one way of doing it. When there've been seasons mainly before Mahomes got here where the Chiefs weren't very good at wide receiver, but they really leaned on their tight ends to carry them. And I could see something like that developing. Yeah, there's no doubt. I wouldn't put it past the Chiefs to draft a tight end in an early round this year, and seeing about getting him ramped up for the day that Kelsey's not around anymore. So I think this definitely could be a year to add a tight end, whether a veteran or rookie, possibly both. I'm not going to predict that, but possibly both, and lean on those guys more than your wide receiving group.
As we let you go, Adam, breaking news in the NFL, another signing, another player off the board. Derrick Henry is heading to the Baltimore Ravens. So the Ravens have signed King Henry 2 years, $16 million. Worth up to $20 million for the Ravens, getting a power back, a pretty good player in Derrick Henry, and to go along with Lamar Jackson and the other weapons on that offense. So Derrick Henry is now a Baltimore Raven. So there you go. Adam, you're the man. Appreciate it as always, brother. Chiefs insider from ESPN, Adam Teicher. Try to keep all the lines of communication open over the next 24 hours, week or so, and we'll talk to you then when some of these other things may be decided and all the chips may fall eventually for the Chiefs. We'll see. But thank you for the time as always, brother.
The 5 phones I've got on my desk are all open right now. They're ready for some action here.
As they should be. Adam, you're the man. Appreciate it, brother.
All right, good stuff, Jason. Talk to you next week.
Absolutely. There's Adam Teicher from ESPN Chiefs Insider, presented by Twin Peaks. Step up your lunch game at Twin Peaks. Enjoy light yet hearty combos put together for you, available at an awesome price. Enjoy your next lunch break with Twin Peaks. Derrick Henry heading to the Baltimore Ravens. Darnell Mooney heading to the Atlanta Falcons. The running backs, and Mooney being a wide receiver, I know, but that just happens to be somebody we've talked about. Running backs coming off the board at a pretty good clip, where wide receivers are still sitting out there waiting to get snatched up. We'll see. We'll take a timeout, come back, continue rolling. More Zone next. We'll talk with Myron Metcalf coming up at noon. Some college basketball as the Big 12 tournament underway. Update on Calvin Ridley, name that's still out there. Adam Schefter reporting that New England is pushing to sign free agent wide receiver Calvin Ridley, but sources believe he currently prefers to return to Jacksonville and has been discussing a deal with the Jags. When they signed Gabe Davis, my immediate reaction was, okay, does that mean Calvin Ridley is leaving? Many people around Jacksonville and reporters had said no, not necessarily. The Jags still want to bring back Calvin Ridley, even when they sign by signing Gabe Davis. Here's the quirky part of this that I didn't realize until now, looking at some reporters from Jacksonville, like a John Shipley. The way that the trade went with the Falcons, that if they were to re-sign Calvin Ridley and extend him before he, quote, or, goes into the next league year or whatever, another draft pick conditionalizes up around. So if they were to sign Calvin Ridley right now, this is weird. If they sign him right now, they would owe Atlanta a second rounder. If they wait to announce it tomorrow after the league year starts, they give Atlanta a third rounder. So many people speculating New England is trying to sign him by throwing more money at him. Calvin Ridley may already have a deal in place with the Jags and is just sort of holding off because the Jags can save a draft pick, not having to, send a second rounder to Atlanta. Instead, they send a third rounder to Atlanta by waiting till tomorrow. That is a quirky little part of a deal in how a draft pick can conditionalize up as to whether you actually sign them on a Monday or Tuesday or you do it on a Wednesday. And I get it with the league year and all that stuff and new league year starting. So technically, extending him or re-signing him before he becomes a free agent would be yesterday and today. Signing him after he's an unrestricted free agent would then be tomorrow. So there you go. Looks like it's Jacksonville and New England for Calvin Ridley, which we'll see how much he goes for. Again, if Gabe Davis is $13 million, if Darnell Mooney is $13 million, how much is Calvin Ridley going to get? We'll find out. He's 30 years old. He prefers to remain in Jacksonville. Good to know about that draft pick compensation. That's there. All right, we'll continue rolling. We'll switch the topic to some college basketball. We heard from Bill Self last night. We played that clip earlier in the show. Him talking about and announcing that Hunter Dickinson and Kevin McCullough will be out for the Big 12 tournament, expecting them to be healthy next week, saying that Hunter Dickinson will have the green light for full contact and everything, basketball activities and everything later on this week, and they'll both be healthy and healthier than they've been in a long time come tournament time. Myron Metcalf next.
free delivery, and better value. Go to GuaranteedFoods.com.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. We will talk with Myron Metcalf here in just a second. Some college basketball, but do want to present some breaking news with the Kansas City Chiefs as we get a little football in here and then bring in Myron Metcalf. But just talking with Adam Teicher in the previous segment about, we're looking at different skill position players and do they maybe go tight end. I talked about Noah Fant and Colby Parkinson. Those guys signed. Hunter Henry signed with the Patriots, etc. The Chiefs have signed a tight end, and that is Irv Smith Jr., played with the Bengals last year, played his first couple years with the Minnesota Vikings, and has been a disappointment in his career. He was a second-round draft pick, big, strong, athletic guy that those sort of peripherals have not translated to success on the field. He was going to be the guy that was going to step into the role of being the number one wide receiver for Hayden Hurst, or number one tight end for Hayden Hurst when he left. It was going to be Irv Smith and a real sneaky, under-the-radar signing. Instead, it ended up being Drew Sample for the Bengals, the main guy and the main tight end, and then they went and signed Mike Gesicki as well. The Bengals did. Irv Smith, free agent out there. The Chiefs sign Irv Smith Jr., so their tight end room now consisting of Travis Kelce, Noah Gray, and Irv Smith Jr. So they did sign somebody. We'll see what the parameters of the contract are. It won't be for much for Irv Smith Jr. It's a very Brett Veach deal, a guy with all of sort of the measurables, former, highly touted guy out of college that hasn't performed at the NFL level yet. So we'll see what Irv Smith can do. Let's talk some college basketball. UCF leading Oklahoma State right now out at T-Mobile. We'll bring in Myron Metcalf from ESPN. He benefits Jackson County CASA, court-appointed special advocates, community volunteers like you that stand up, speak out to help children who have experienced abuse or neglect. Jackson County CASA, Jackson County CASA-MO.org is what benefits when Myron Metcalf comes on the show. Let's talk some college basketball. Myron, welcome into the show. How are you on this Tuesday?
I'm good, man. Ready for the madness, man. So this is a chaotic week for me, but I love it.
Yeah, we are ready as well. We've got double duty going on at T-Mobile today with the men starting and going right now, and the women's championship coming up tonight. And unfortunately, K-State couldn't get the job done against Texas last night because, man, it would have been an awesome scene tonight with K-State, Iowa State, because Iowa State travels wherever they go, and they'll take over Kansas City here. But the Big 12 tournament coming on tonight or today, and then on into tomorrow. KU playing tomorrow, K-State playing tomorrow. Let's talk about the Kansas Jayhawks here, because the biggest news coming out of the loss against Houston was Hunter Dickinson's shoulder. Kevin McCullough played just a few minutes and ended up sitting out the rest of the game. Hunter Dickinson and Kevin McCullough will not play this week. Bill Self announcing that last night, but saying he believes it's a good thing, Myron, because they're going to be as healthy as they've ever been when it comes tournament time. And Hunter Dickinson, 48 hours after the injury, is much better than doctors thought he would be. So I guess your reaction to KU going into this week and games, we'll see how long they survive here in Kansas City without Hunter Dickinson and Kevin McCullough.
I mean, it's a tall task, right? I mean, it's one thing to play without Kevin. To play without Kevin and Hunter, that's just a different team, entirely. It's one thing for a couple guys to step up. This is, it'll be a challenge. They could lose right away, just because of the difference that they've experienced in a short span. But obviously, the big question is what happens in the tournament, and I don't know what to make of it. I think Hunter dislocated shoulder. That can be a thing that really takes a while to heal up. But I guess I don't know enough about whether or not he can come back and be healthy. Kevin, I'm far more doubtful on. I talked to Kevin last week, man, for a piece I'm working on, and he is getting up early in the morning, man, and doing everything he can to get that knee ready, But the challenge is it's such a challenging injury because the only way to heal it is with rest. But there's no other way to heal it. So, he plays for a stretch, and then it just flares up again. And, you know, it's hard. It's a tough thing for him, man, because I know he's fighting through the pain. But at what point is it too much? I don't know the answer to that, you know?
Yeah.
So that matters.
Yeah, I mean, I believe Bill Self in what he was saying last night because he was adamant about it. You know, there was a follow up by Brian Haney and asked him, "All right, so what you're saying?" And I thought it was funny. Bill Self was like, "I said it pretty slow and clearly, just so I knew there were media members listening, so I said it to where people would understand." And they had a little joke about that, and the follow-up was, "You expect them to be healthy?" And he's like, "Yeah, they're good. They'll be good to go for the tournament." I believe Bill Self in how at least genuine and sincere he was in which he was presenting that information, but there is the skeptical part of it of, hey, tournament committee, they're going to be fine. Selection committee, they're going to be fine. They're not playing this week, but it's a good thing they're not playing this week because they'll be extra healthy next week.
Yeah, Bill's done this before, you know. I mean, so he understands that the message to the committee has to be that we're going to be okay. You know, don't knock our seed because these guys will be back. I don't know if that's real or not. Because the challenge, again, I don't know as much about Hunter, but the challenge with Kevin is, let's say he's back, right? How long is he back? You know, that's going to be the challenge with Kevin. I was in Lawrence a couple weeks ago when Bill Self said, quote, "We're not counting on Kevin to come back." That was the quote. And then he played a couple days later, you know? So it's just hard to know how much they can get from Kevin, you know? Like, getting him out there is step one. Step two is him playing at a high level, right? And we all know he can do that. Step three is playing at a high level for a full game. Step four is potentially playing at a high level for multiple games. And those are all different things. I'm pretty confident in step one, you know, maybe even step two, but step 3 and 4 is where it gets more difficult when it comes to Kevin McCullough. So, yeah, I think Bill is doing the wise thing and sending a message to the committee and saying, yeah, they'll be back. These aren't season-ending injuries. This ain't King and Martin. But I just don't know how much to expect from Kevin considering this injury and how he, you know, the real cure is rest, and he just can't do that right now.
Well, and such the difference between the regular season and the NCAA tournament. I mean, it's one thing from Tuesday to Saturday. This is Thursday to Saturday or Friday to Sunday, where you got to bounce back and play with 1 day rest. And if that thing's swelling up, and I do wonder too from the committee standpoint, as they look at this KU team and say, okay, well, they may have McCullough and Hunter Dickinson to start the tournament. And even if Hunter Dickinson is fully healthy, we've sort of seen going back to, you know, late January when this thing started and he's been in and out of the lineup. Even if you view it from that standpoint, with a healthy Hunter Dickinson, but with an in and out healthy and sometimes struggling and knee swelling and then limiting his ability, this is a KU team that's 6-5 since Kevin McCullough got injured. So that's also that's a pretty decent sample size for the committee to look at and go, what have they looked like since late January? They might go into the tournament depending on what happens against West Virginia or Cincinnati on Wednesday, tomorrow, depending on what happens this afternoon with those teams. They may go into the tournament and in their last 12 games since McCullough got injured being 6-6.
Yeah, no, it's possible. And you know, if the committee watched Saturday, you know, Hunter and Kevin were in the first half. You know, they were there, and it was still a lopsided game against, you know, a top seed in Houston. So, you know, even fully healthy, to your point, they've had their challenges. So it's going to be interesting to see what the committee does with them. It's going to be interesting to see how Kevin plays this, because now Kevin's in a really difficult spot, as is Hunter. These are two guys who want to prove that they're pros, right? These are two guys who want to prove they can play at the next level. And we watched many players over the course of our careers change their futures, change their lives with a big performance in the tournament, right? So that matters. At the same time, if you hurt yourself, you know, in the months before the draft, in the months before that moment arrives, how does that help?
Yeah.
You know, so I think Kevin is in a really, really tough spot, man. I know he wants to play for this team, and he's going to do everything he can, and I'm confident he'll be out there. for the tournament. But how long? And potentially at what cost if the goal is to be ready in time for the NBA draft?
Myron Metcalf is our guest from ESPN, our college basketball insider. When he's on, he benefits Jackson County CASA. Let's talk about the K-State Wildcats. They get a big win. They get a big resume builder, a quad one win against Iowa State over the weekend. They have a quad one opportunity tomorrow night against Texas. And if they win that one, they would have another quad one opportunity and a rematch against Iowa State here in Kansas City on Thursday. Real quick, let me go back to KU because this will lead into Kansas State. What's the value of the Big 12 tournament for KU specifically? And then we know what it will be for K-State, but what's the value for KU without McCullough and Dickinson? Is there much to it for Bill Self, getting guys playing time, experience, maybe some confidence, et cetera? Is that what Bill Self can take from what could be tomorrow or Thursday or just tomorrow? We'll find out.
Yeah, the value is, what if this is the real team going into the tournament? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the value.
Yeah.
Like, what if this is the team? You know, what if everything Bill said is a message to the committee, but it's not, you know, he's being more optimistic than you know, the real situation. So, I mean, that's the benefit. It's like, yeah, what if this is the crew you're taking into the tournament? You know, these guys got to know how to play. At the same time, if I'm Bill Self, and I've talked to coaches who said this, you know, there might be an element of him that feels like, man, let's just we need rest. You know, like we need as much rest as we can get at this point. You know, whether this is the team we're taking into the tournament or not being fatigued going into that next stage, there could be a benefit there. But I don't know that you get a ton. You know, Bill knows what he has in this team. There's not like some mystery guy coming off the bench who is going to change everything for this team. So they kind of are who they are.
Yeah, and if Cincinnati wins this afternoon, if they win this afternoon, that's a top 50 team in the net. And so is there value in KU beating Cincinnati and losing to Baylor? Does that change their seed line as opposed to just simply losing to Cincinnati? Does that change their seed line, you know, in any way, shape, or form? It may not. And so from that standpoint, you may go, look, they lose to Cincinnati and get ready for the NCAA tournament next Thursday, Saturday, Friday, Sunday, whatever it might be. Let's talk about K-State. They've got Texas coming up tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. They get the quad one win against Iowa State. I talked about that. The value of the Big 12 tournament is pretty obvious from K-State's standpoint. How many of these games do you think they need to win to be, you know, to see their name on Sunday, or does it have to be they are winning on Saturday night and that's the way they see their name on Sunday?
I mean, I think there's a world where they win. They beat Texas and Iowa State, you know, and they're right there. But I mean, if you're Jerome Tang, the message is we got to at least get Saturday. You know, like we got to be right there. But I mean, if you look at the bubble in terms of teams that have the best chance to kind of win their way in without the AQ, the automatic qualifier, I mean, Kansas State's high on that list. You know, the opportunities are right there. You're rematching an Iowa State team that undefeated at home, 9-0, 4-5 outside of Hilton Coliseum in Big 12 play. Even though that arena is going to sound like Hilton Coliseum, you defeated them before outside of where they're most comfortable. Went over a Texas team. Like, so I think if you're Jerome Tang, the message is, you know, we got to go as far as we can go, maybe win it. But I think you get 2 wins and you're in a really, you know, a good spot. Not a guaranteed spot, but a good spot, especially if you look at, you know, what is going to be presented to some of these other teams on the bubble in the opening rounds of their tournament. Not many are going to get a chance to play the teams that Kansas State will play in the next 48 hours.
Can they accomplish that? Can they get to Friday? I mean, I know we talked about Iowa State, and you mentioned their record there. It starts tomorrow against Texas. Can they find themselves playing on Friday, given what I think would be the biggest issue is some of their inconsistencies that they've played with, especially in game from possession to possession? Can they put back-to-back games together on back-to-back nights to really show the committee that they're deserving of being in the tournament.
Well, they have to, right? I mean, I think the thing about Kansas State is that you've seen that potential. I mean, so you've seen them play at a level where you go, okay, you know how good they can be. They just haven't been that good consistently, So, but they have the wins that say, oh wow, okay, they defeated a bunch of teams that are on their way to the NCAA tournament. Teams that are comfortably in the mix. If you can beat the Baylors and KUs and Iowa State, you got a shot. But yeah, to your point, how do they finish? I think Jerome Tang can just go to the film last year, right? He can literally just turn on last year and say, listen, nobody thought we were going to be a team that made some run and finished the way that we did, and nobody counted on us to do anything this year, but we've exceeded the odds in the past. So I think he can put together a couple of games, again, Iowa State, different team at home. They've had their challenges outside of Ames, Iowa, and what Texas has been as well. So they can do it. But executing in an environment like this is always going to be challenging if you're playing in the best league in America.
Visiting with Myron Metcalf, the SEC tournament gets underway tomorrow. Missouri in action against Georgia, and they are trying to just simply not go 0-19. They go on a historic 0-18 run. It's really is it a matter of not figuring out how to win or losing becoming contagious? Because man, it seems every game for Missouri this year, Myron, was they're playing really well, and they're like, hey, it's tonight the night they're going to get a win. In the second half, they're playing well, and then like a 14-0 run goes, and Missouri slowly falls behind. Then they fight back in the last 2 minutes, and they lose by like 5 or 6, and you're like, man, they were right there. It's like, yeah, but they were down 15 when they started fighting back and got within 5 or 6. That seems to be every single game with Missouri. Is that just a team that, one, doesn't have enough, that you see basketball, a game of runs, that they're almost there? Is it coaching to not get over the hump? Is it losing becoming contagious? Is it all of the above? How do you have a team that, like, every single night it seems like the same game is played?
Yeah, I don't think it's that complicated. It's a personnel issue. You don't have the talent, I mean, like sometimes we talk about teams in college the way that we should only talk about teams in the NBA, right? Where there's like this sort of balance of talent, where every team has elite players who can help them win a game against anybody, right? I think LeBron said earlier this year, like, hey, we can beat anybody in the NBA. We can lose to anybody. And that's the reality at that level. That's not college. I mean, in college, like if you have a limited roster and you have a talent gap with everybody you face, you can't make a midseason trade. Like there's nobody coming to help, So I think it's that more than anything. I do think they're fighting. You know what I mean? Like being down is the talent gap, But fighting back is, I think, that determination and effort that they have shown. I don't think they quit on Dennis Gates. I just don't think they have enough talent to win. And there's not a lot in our sport that you can do about that. Like you can't make some mid-season change to suddenly become a different team if your talent pool is limited, especially coming off of what they had a year ago. So I think, to me, that is the biggest thing that happened for this squad. I mean, you had NBA guys, last year. You had Kobe and what he was able to do. You had some really talented players, and you don't have that same crew. You don't have that same talent at the top, and it shows. So I think that's what we're looking at. I don't know if it's more complicated than that, honestly.
I'm weirdly optimistic that they win tomorrow night. For no reason whatsoever, Myron. Just
they might.
I don't know why. Like, it's been a couple of months since I thought they would win a game. Like, since Vanderbilt, really. That I'm like, I think they're going to win this weekend. For some or tonight, whatever, midweek game or whatever. For some reason, I'm like, I feel confident. I think they're going to go. I think they're going to go 1-19 in the SEC this year by beating Georgia, and then the Florida game the next day on Thursday.
You got to root for it, man. I mean,
Yeah, right. I mean,
I can't imagine what's like in that locker room, what it's like for Dennis Gates and all the success he had. I mean, all the success he's had throughout his career to be going through this. I mean, it must just feel miserable kind of be in this spot. But again, watching the games, I really don't feel like they quit on them. I just don't. I don't see that. You know, I don't know if that'll mean anything going forward, but I don't think they quit on.
Well, your time around the game, what does that mean maybe to you that, you know, this team is losing, so, you know, they've got to figure out a way to win. You would look at the coaching to, hey, you know, get your team over the hump or try to find a way to get your team over the hump. But they are fighting every game. They haven't quit on Dennis Gates. He hasn't lost the locker room or anything. They haven't had decommitments from, you know, the top 5 recruiting class for next year or anything like that. And you know, with 2-3 minutes to go, down by double digits, that team is still working hard and pressing and coming back and still fighting and showing the energy and everything. They're not winning, so is it putting lipstick on a pig of what the season has been to say, well, you know, he hasn't lost the locker room. Is it grasping at straws to try to find anything, or is there something tangible there that you can build upon if you're Dennis Gates and try to put this disaster of a season behind you starting maybe tomorrow night?
How old is Dennis Gates? You know,
41, 42. He looks 25.
41,
so
yeah, 41, 42, right? So here's what we do to coaches. It is not. I don't think it's necessarily fair.
He's 44 years old.
We don't. We assume that all of the great coaches have been great forever, and there's some. You know, there's some who've never really experienced a bad stretch. I mean, Cal, a couple years ago, literally had the worst season that Kentucky has had in 100 years, right? Coach K was 10-17 in the 1981-82 season, and then 11-17 the following year, and they were about to fire him. So, I mean, I'm not saying Dennis Gates is that, but I am saying when you look at the Wikipedia page of his career, when it's all said and done, this might not even register. I mean, his track record has been success. You know, like that's what he's done as an assistant, as a head coach. And this year has been a disaster. It's been bad for everybody involved. But I think you have to look at the full body of work. And there is a world where this is a blemish, where people look at it years from now and go, man, how did that happen? But it doesn't define his legacy. And that's happened to a lot of coaches across college basketball. And I think sometimes we forget that. Like that some of these coaches have had terrible years, absolutely terrible years, but they followed it with a bunch of success, so, you know, no one cares. And this could be that for Dennis Gates as well.
Myron Metcalf is our guest, benefiting Jackson County CASA. He's from ESPN. As you look around to some of these conference tournaments, are there any teams that maybe you can identify that might be bid stealers? You know, like, you know, winning the conference tournament, you know, K-State, I don't know, would be a bid stealer if they win the next 3 games or whatever, next 3 days and find themselves with enough to get an at-large bid. But any teams that you look at and go, you know what, this is outside of the one big leagues, obviously, but you know what, this is a team that can go and win and go from outside to an automatic qualifier.
Yeah, I mean, that South Florida team, you know, it won a lot. I don't know if they're an at-large team. I mean, I'm doing the American tournament this week for TV. I mean, I think they certainly have a shot. I think Wake Forest, we've seen what they can do. You know, I think they're on the outside looking in. You know, Hunter Salas has been really good in big stretches for that team. They've just kind of been all over. I think Memphis has a chance to win the American this week and you know, get a bid. So, yeah, I think there are a couple of teams that have a chance, but at the same time, I don't, you know, the top 3 seeds are always significantly better than everybody else. It just feels like the best teams in America right now are just way ahead of everybody else. You know, like there's a pack of 12 to 15 teams that seem reliable, and then there's just a bunch of teams that are just hard to figure them out going into this week.
Do you think the Missouri Valley gets 2 bids with Indiana State and Drake both making it into the tournament on Sunday?
I get it. You know what I mean? I get the push. You know what I mean? And I think, you know, the problem is I think there are people who are saying Indiana State, you know, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, whatever, you know, all that stuff. But it's like, no, this has been a good team. I just don't know why we talk about bubble teams in non-Power 5 leagues in ways that we don't talk about bubble teams in Power 5 leagues. Like, we should be having the same conversations. And to me, at some point, we can't be so enamored by the metrics that we don't actually look at a team and go, wow, you know what? I think they can play. And I think if you watched Indiana State at any point over the course of the last 6 weeks, I think you look at them and go, yeah, that team can play. That team can win a game in the tournament. So I'd like to believe it could happen, but you just never know when you talk about a non-Power 5 team. I just wish we'd change our language around these teams because, like, Power 5 bubble teams, you're like, oh, yeah, of course, that team can get in. Well, why can't Indiana State?
Yeah.
What's significantly worse compared to those teams?
Yeah, I mean, look, if we get more Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Larry
Kareem
Blur.
Abdul-Jabbar is the greatest name in the history of the world, man. That is.
Yeah, I like Larry Blurd too. That was
Larry Blurd. Larry Blurd is incredible.
It's fun stuff.
Incredible.
If people have not seen that, go check out Indiana State of what we're talking about. Myron Metcalf from ESPN presented and benefiting Jackson County CASA. Myron, you're the man. Really appreciate the time. Enjoy the AAC tournament, and we will talk next week when these matchups are set. In fact, when we talk next week, we'll be getting ready for the play-in games in Dayton. So that'll be a lot of fun. Myron, you're the man. Appreciate it, brother.
All right, thanks a lot, man.
All right, there's Myron Metcalf, again, from ESPN College Basketball Insider, benefiting Jackson County CASA, court-appointed special advocates, community volunteers just like you. They stand up and speak out to help children who have experienced abuse or neglect. Jackson County CASA recruits, trains, and supports these CASA volunteers to advocate for the best interests of children who are in the Jackson County family court system until they have a safe and permanent home. It's jacksoncountycasa-mo.org, jacksoncountycasa-mo.org. We will take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll continue rolling more zone right after this. It's Sports Radio 810 WHB. All right, thank you to Myron Medcalf from ESPN, our college basketball insider, Jackson County CASA-MO.org, as the Big 12 tournament underway at T-Mobile, as UCF is leading Oklahoma State at halftime, 35-31, and then West Virginia and Cincinnati will start 25 minutes after the Oklahoma State and Central Florida game wraps up. The winner of West Virginia-Cincinnati takes on Kansas, a depleted Kansas, as we talked about there with Myron Medcalf. A Kansas team that will throw out a starting lineup tomorrow of DeJuan Harris, El Marco, Nick Timberlake, Johnny Furphy, and KJ Adams. Those are going to be your five. KJ Adams starting at the five that Bill Self talked about last night with Brian Haney. Johnny Furphy being your four, but he's 6'9" as a power forward, just lacking the power, part of the power forward. But 4 out, 1 in. 4 out, run in, spread the floor, shoot threes, see what you can do if you're the Kansas Jayhawks. Have some fun, man. Go into tomorrow night's game, and just see what happens. Not a lot of stress, I would guess, with the fact that Dickinson and McCullough are not playing. And the stress will be what the committee does on Sunday and where they place the Kansas Jayhawks, depending on what happens with the Cincinnati game in West Virginia today. If Cincinnati wins, then I don't know how much KU gains from beating Cincinnati and losing to Baylor, as opposed to even just losing to Cincinnati. They would gain more opportunity for these guys to get some playing time together. We have talked about sometimes, the guys off the bench being an issue. We'll see what Nick Timberlake looks like as a starter now in this particular game, although, starting and senior day and all of that stuff. So 913-912-4810 is the text line. K-State in action tomorrow. And as we said with Myron there, I think things are pretty straightforward for the Wildcats. Win tomorrow, win on Thursday, and see where you're at on Friday. Win that one, then I think you're in a pretty good spot. But they are in must-win territory now for the Wildcats for Jerome Tang. Next week at this time when we'll be talking to Myron Medcalf, it'll be getting ready for the play-in games in Dayton on a Tuesday and Wednesday, and then the NCAA tournament on Thursday. I'll be on the air on Sunday with the Selection Sunday show right here on Sports Radio 810, and all of the breaking news, the brackets, and see what the path is for KU if K-State's on the bracket. Hopefully they are. And then, of course, when Mizzou wins on Sunday, as Mizzou goes through the SEC tournament this week, and when they win the SEC tournament on Sunday, what their path will be. We'll be on the air on Sunday with the Selection Sunday show. 913-912-4810. UCF, by the way, now up by 11 as they came out with a quick little run to start the second half there. So they're up by 11. There's the Big 12 tournament. Men's side getting underway tonight, wrapping up with Iowa State and Texas. Before we talked with Myron Medcalf, we had mentioned that there was news on the Chiefs front. It had been all quiet on the one Arrowhead Drive front, that they weren't signing any of the free agents that were out there. There wasn't any news with the Chiefs. There were guys that were signed all over the place, running backs, wide receivers, guards galore. Their big move, obviously, was Chris Jones, retaining him at almost $32 million per year, 3 years and $95 million guaranteed in the first 3 years. But as we talked with Adam Teicher in the 11 o'clock hour, one of the things I mentioned was while wide receivers are still out there and Darnell Mooney and Gabe Davis have signed, and that's it, we'll see what happens with Calvin Ridley. Reports are it's going to be Patriots or Jags. We'll see what happens with Hollywood Brown, Odell Beckham Jr., Curtis Samuel, players like that are still available. And I talked with Adam Teicher about, okay, what do you think about the tight end market? I would have liked to see them go and grab, let's say, a Colby Parkinson. That was the guy that I kept bringing up as a replacement for Blake Bell to get better at that spot when you've got to go to 13 personnel. Or if Noah Gray or Travis Kelce are banged up, you don't have Blake Bell out there as the guy that's going to be running some of those routes. Nothing against Blake Bell. He's a blocker. So how do you get better from that standpoint? And I mentioned Gerald Everett with Adam Teicher, but the Chiefs went out and signed Irv Smith Jr. That's the move they've made so far. I like the move. We'll see. We'll see how much the money is. I doubt it's going to be for anything substantial because you're talking about pretty far down the line to grab a tight end, and this is a replacement for Blake Bell. And I'm totally fine with it. He's a good blocker. He's got a lot of athleticism. He has underperformed since coming out of Alabama as a second-round draft pick. He's, athletic, and he's a better pass catcher than Blake Bell. So I think you now have three guys that at least offer some sort of a threat. Certainly the main guy offers a major threat in Travis Kelce. Noah Gray offers a threat in running routes and being able to get open, catching the ball. Blake Bell did not, and Irv Smith Jr. does. So I think the Chiefs got better. They are going to get incrementally better in some of these deals. Not every single deal that the Chiefs, throw out there is going to be hitting the lottery. They're not going to be, they sign, they sign Calvin Ridley, and then they're going to sign Tyron Smith, and they're going to sign Danielle Hunter, and on and on and on. Like, that's not going to be the case, and I think most people know that. I don't think anybody is under delusions of grandeur that, every single deal is going to be this great move, but these are the moves that need to be made as you fill out your 53. Can you get better at that spot? Okay, their tight end room right now with Irv Smith over Blake Bell is better than what it was last year. Their cornerback room, although L'Jarius Sneed is on the team right now, the expectation is that he won't be on the team. Their cornerback room will not be as good. But which positions are you moving some things around to be able to do that? I think it probably looks like teams are slow playing the wide receiver market. Because if you're paying $13 million for Gabe Davis and $13 million for Darnell Mooney, I like Darnell Mooney. I wanted the Chiefs to go out and sign Darnell Mooney. I just couldn't believe it was for $13 million. And if you're talking about $13 million, said it with Adam Teicher, if somebody's going to pay $13 million for a player, I'd rather it be Saquon Barkley. And I know they've got Isaiah Pacheco, but I'd rather pay $13 million to Saquon Barkley than I would for Gabe Davis or Darnell Mooney. Mooney might be phenomenal with the Falcons. He might be, betting on the first couple of years of his career, and it's why I wanted the Chiefs to go out and sign him. And you have the reunion with Matt Nagy. But that is not going to be the case, and I think a lot of it is because of the money. Shaq Barrett signing with the Miami Dolphins. There was a question earlier. There was a text that came in, 913-912-4810, about Deontay Johnson. And look, if Deontay Johnson is actually out there available to trade for it, heck yeah. I would love for the Chiefs to go and bring in Deontay Johnson. I think he's an awesome player. He's a great route runner. Gets open. He's had a couple of games where he's had some drops, and those have been amplified, I think, in Pittsburgh. But he's not a, quote, dropper of the football. And he can make plays after the catch. So I like Deontay Johnson if he's available. What would it cost? Like, everything here is about cost acquisition. Everything that we're discussing is about how much it's going to cost to get that guy. I'd love for them to get Curtis Samuel. But I think Curtis Samuel's going to go for, more money than Darnell Mooney, I would guess. Hollywood Brown's going to go for, more money than that. I thought Hollywood Brown would go for like $12 million a year. You got Gabe Davis and Darnell Mooney going for 13. We'll see. But they also have to reassess their guard situation, the Chiefs do. Because Trey Smith is going to be a free agent after this year in a market that is ballooned with the guards, with Robert Hunt signing for $100 million. That's right, $100 million to the Panthers on 5 years. Not 10 years, 5-year deal, $20 million per year. And they gave an extra year to Robert Hunt, and the Chiefs gave Jawan Taylor to play guard. The Chiefs paying Jawan Taylor that to play tackle. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll continue rolling. We'll continue getting into some NFL football, some other news that may be coming down the line. Also, Mark Donovan and Brooke Sherman met yesterday and talking about the different particulars that are going into the vote coming up 3 weeks. We'll be discussing the election day. We'll be discussing the initiative on the ballot to extend the tax for the Royals and the Chiefs and some of the details that still are not there. And even in having a press conference to help explain some of those things, there was a lot to be desired in that. We'll get into that conversation as well. We'll take a timeout, come back. More Zone next. All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you. Drake, we head up until 2 o'clock. Big 12 underway. Women's Big 12 Championship coming up tonight. Iowa State and Texas as people heading out and hanging out at T-Mobile today. Text says, we were talking about Darnell Mooney and we were talking about Gabe Davis. I think it might have been from Mooney. He said, hold on, is that $13 million per year? Yeah, it's $13 million per year for that. Again, we'll find out what some of these other players may go for. Another text wondering about Jody Fortson. I don't think it's Fort season anymore in Kansas City. I think the year after year after year of wanting Jody Fortson to be that guy that sort of develops and becomes a threat, that an extra threat at the tight end spot, I don't think that's going to be the case anymore. With the back-to-back years of injuries, the Achilles tear, the shoulder issue, I think it's run its course. And now being a free agent, Jody Fortson, maybe they bring him back. Maybe I can't imagine there being a robust market for him. So if they bring him back, then yeah, he could be a guy that could be on the practice squad. But as far as looking at it and going, okay, Jody Fortson, they're going to keep 4 tight ends. Like the conversation we were having going into training camp last year and some parts of training camp before he got injured, the conversation we were having was, they're keeping 4 tight ends. So they're going to keep Travis Kelce, Noah Gray, Jody Fortson, and Blake Bell. Or do they let Blake Bell go and sign somebody else? Well, they got to keep Blake Bell because they don't have a fullback. Well, that was all about, Jody Fortson and what he could be. I don't know what Irv Smith's going to be. I know he's been a massive disappointment. I know he's been a guy that, when he was drafted in the second round out of Alabama by the Vikings, I know he was expected to be a tight end 1, and he hasn't been that. Irv Smith is the guy that if you play fantasy football, he's one of those guys that's out there that late, sometimes a quarterback, it might be like not Sam Darnold, but quarterbacks like that might be just a little bit better. That you go, you know what? I don't have a quarterback. I'm going with the no quarterback strategy. I don't have a quarterback, so I'm going to Gardner Minshew. I'm going to take Gardner Minshew late, and hopefully he can break out. I'm going to go and take Baker Mayfield late, and hopefully he can break out. I'm going to take Jameis Winston late, and hopefully he's going to have a breakout. Doing the whole no quarterback strategy. The no tight end strategy for a few years was, you know what? I'm going to wait. I'm going to get Irv Smith late because Irv Smith's going to break out this year. You know what? Another year with the Vikings. He looks healthier. This is the year, man. This is the year for the Vikings. It's going to be Irv Smith. He signed with the Bengals. I mean, you saw what Hayden Hurst was doing. Irv Smith is more athletic. Now you got Joe Burrow. You got attention going to T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. I'm going to take Irv Smith late in the draft. This guy's going to have a breakout. 18 catches later on the season. So the expectations are not high for him, but I think that's, when you look at a Jody Fortson, I think this guy takes the spot of Blake Bell. Is there a spot for Jody Fortson? I guess, if we view this as Blake Bell's spot, then Jody Fortson, if he's healthy, but it's just like, man, for 2 years, that guy's been talked about. Along with, Justin Ross. What about Justin Ross? What about Jody Fortson? There are guys that fans latch onto, and it's like, oh, man, I can't quit you. I just see what it could be, but we don't actually see it.
The Zone is presented by Guaranteed Foods, delivering all natural food to Midwestern families since 1958. Enjoy healthier food, more free time, free delivery, and better value. Go to GuaranteedFoods.com.
All right, we'll continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB, 913-912-4810. No new news for the Chiefs since the last hour or so. Irv Smith Jr. Signing as depth for the Chiefs at the tight end position, maybe taking that spot of Blake Bell. We've talked about that. We talked Big 12 basketball, some NCAA basketball with Myron Metcalf. Talked a lot about the Chiefs in general with Adam Teicher. By the way, news coming down out of the NFL. Patrick Queen, former Baltimore Raven, is signing a 3-year deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So the Ravens lose one of their big pieces of their defense, one of their vocal guys, one of their sort of like on the field and emotion-wise, sort of that Willie Gay type player. And the Chiefs are more than likely going to lose. I mean, pretty sure they're going to lose Willie Gay with them signing Drew Tranquill. But that's the news that's coming out of the NFL. Catching people up, Derrick Henry is heading to the Baltimore Ravens. Darnell Mooney is heading to the Atlanta Falcons. Shaq Barrett is heading to Miami. And as we said right there, Patrick Queen is heading to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Quarterbacks that are on the move, Sam Darnold heading to the Minnesota Vikings. Kirk Cousins is a Falcon. Gardner Minshew is a Raider. Thank God. They figured it out. I mean, they've got it all figured out now, but they've got Gardner Minshew. And I get it. They got the 13th pick, so you know, you have Gardner Minshew. He can be a bridge for the next quarterback. And we'll see what that bridge is. We'll see if anybody, if they end up drafting anybody. They've got the 13th pick. Denver, a pick ahead of them, is going to be looking for quarterbacks. And Minnesota, while they signed Sam Darnold, do a 1-year, $10 million deal, they're also going to be looking for quarterback. And oh, by the way, the teams in front of them in terms of pick number 1 and 2 are going to be looking for quarterback. I think the New England Patriots probably looking for quarterback. That's 5 teams ahead of the Raiders that will be looking for quarterbacks in this draft. 4 quarterbacks may go in the top 10. We'll see. I think they signed a guy. And I'm not saying that, you go out there and, there was a stud quarterback that was available. But, I mean, Kirk Cousins, or just simply trade whatever it takes this year, or just not be all that great next year, and then trade, move up, and see if you can get a quarterback from that standpoint. We'll see. But I do love the fact that the Chiefs go into Vegas, they win the Super Bowl, Mahomes gets another Super Bowl MVP, and the Raiders go and get to a defensive tackle and Gardner Minshew, a backup quarterback. But that's fine. Denver's working with a backup quarterback, and the Chargers are working with backup cap situation. So the Royals and Chiefs, as they are trying to get this ballot measure passed on April 2nd to extend the 3/8 cent tax, to get this lease, to move downtown for the Royals and the renovations for Arrowhead Stadium. We've talked about this for years now, a couple of years, over a year since the Royals have been discussing the different places they may move to, the timing of the whole thing. It's been a while. And the issue we run into now is they are running out of time. And to get a lot of people on board, at least around the community, I think when we look at it strictly from the Royals and Chiefs here or not, yeah, I mean, I want the Royals and Chiefs to be here. I don't have a vote on this. I'm not going to tell somebody to vote either way. I don't have a vote. I don't live in the county, so I can't vote. I want the Chiefs and Royals to stay in Kansas City. I don't think it's a threat where the Chiefs and Royals are definitely going to move. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities. I don't think it's a 0% chance. I think it's above 0% chance that they could move. So you always want to make sure that they are going to be a part of the community for, forever, really. As long as there's football, as long as there's Major League Baseball, I want the Royals and Chiefs to be in town. But part of the Chiefs, and especially the Royals, when John Sherman was talking about, building this ballpark downtown and doing different things for the downtown community, the things that were big parts of that, the ballpark district was a big selling point for me. in how much extra money they can renovate to throw into, or generate, I should say, that they can throw into the Royals payroll. The Chiefs looking for different revenue generators to help out with cash, signing bonuses, escrow accounts where the guaranteed money has to go into when you sign a contract. But the Royals talked about the ballpark district was going to be a big part of them reinvesting into the team. And John Sherman talked about the community, the impact of the community. We don't want to just take money from you and build a new stadium. We want to give back, and not just give back in having a team on the field, not just give back in saying we're a major league city, we've got a major league team, but give back in the community benefits agreement, and something that a number of organizations around the city have been wondering what that's going to look like. April 2nd is the vote. And we don't actually have details on this. Here's Mark Donovan. This is clip number 1. Here's Mark Donovan on the community benefits agreement and what took place in 2006 versus now. But here's Mark Donovan explaining and talking about the community benefits agreement and being better than it was, 20 years ago.
To try to simplify it, from our standpoint, we have offered a better CBA in the existing proposal, which is in the hands of the county, than we had in 06. We are offering a better lease that is in the hands of our landlords, the Sports Authority, than we did in 06. And we're offering a renovated stadium that's going to keep this iconic venue up and existing and able to host the biggest events in the world for the next 25 to 40 years. It's that simple. And I know there's a lot of noise. I know there's a lot of questions. I know there's a lot of confusing angles to this. But the reality is it's that simple. This keeps 2 great franchises in this region, and it does it in a way that actually is better for Jackson County.
There's a lot of general and vague points in that. And again, I've been for downtown baseball for a long time. I wanted the vote back in 2006 to get turned down because I wanted either downtown baseball for the Royals or a rolling roof between the two. Even though it was like, we're going to put a rolling roof on this. We don't exactly know how, but we'll get it figured out. Trust us, which might be one of the reasons why it failed. But here's extra money that would go towards the rolling roof. All right, I wanted that, or I wanted the vote to get turned down so the Royals can then look at downtown. Neither of those things happened. They just simply voted for the 3/8 cent tax so that then, they can renovate the stadiums and stay longer. Because there was more of the threat of we will leave. That seemed way more prevalent than what's going on right now. But as Mark Donovan saying, it's going to be better than 2006. Trust us. It's going to be better than 2006. We're in a position to where we're 3 weeks away from the vote. We just found out, where they're going to move the Royals, where the site's going to be. Around the Super Bowl is when we found that out. And a big part of this, when they had their press conference of this is going to be something that is about the community. We are giving back to the community. Look what KCI and the terminal, what they were giving back to the community. Okay, so what's going to be in this? Because that's been a question when you put this in front of somebody. What's going to be in this for this community to give back besides just we're going to have the Royals and the Chiefs in town? Here's Mark Donovan talking about maybe some specifics of what's going to be in that, what the give back will be to the community.
Yeah, I'll speak to that because, as I mentioned, everything gets really complicated and everything gets really confusing, right? There are 2 different projects in 2 different areas of the city with 2 different developments around them. So the CBAs are going to be different. The 2 CBAs are going to be different. There are some things we're working very closely on together. So that has to happen as well. What's in the CBA is a way for us to do more for this community and support what's important to this community. When I talk about the 2006 CBA, Fair Trade Agreement, we looked at that and said, how can we make that better and how can we give more? And I can say almost across the board, we've done that. So when you think about MBWE, WB, when you think about our training programs, where not only can we train more people, but actually give them lifelong careers and create wealth, we're going to do more of that. So the things that we look at in a CBA we've actually improved on from 06.
And I would agree with that from a Royal standpoint as well. And the other thing I would add is that, we used the airport as an original template working through this, and the CBA that will end up here will be better than that from the airport that occurred with the airport. And we're happy to do it, and we're moving forward with that. It'll be very positive.
Again, we get it's going to be better. It'll be better than what they did at the airport. We're going to make things better. We're going to give more. It's improved from 2006. Look at the airport. It's going to be better than that. So what about details? Well, there'll be some training. We'll do some training, life skills. We'll give some life skills there. What about details? It's going to be better. Now, when you vote on April 2nd, you're just going to have to trust us that the give back to the community. When we talked about what would be affordable housing, when we talked about the jobs around the area, that there would be some sort of an allocation of money that would go towards minimum wage to make sure that it's more than what would be a living wage. When you talked about communities that were underserved, that would be taken care of and the focus would be there. When you discuss some of those things, what are the details there? Oh, the details in that? Oh, here it is. Let me read right here. It will be better. Trust us. April 2nd, ballot. The give back to the community is fine print. It will be better. Okay. Well, the airport, what did they have? Small business training? Small business owners, I should say. Didn't they give owners of small businesses training and different ways to then be a part of the project at the new terminal in some way, shape, or form? They also did a 3-week course with a workforce training program that graduates could then be hired by subcontractors to enter into a union program for a pre-apprentice. Certainly helps. But when the first thing there is, hey, we're going to help out small business owners, which is great. You want to do that. But I don't think the people that we're talking about, that we're discussing the community benefits from the downtown stadium of what the give back to the community is, hey, we're going to train more small business owners. Because we're talking about underserved areas of the community as it is. And what the give back will be there. And part of the pushback is this was the Royals' selling point. If they didn't come out strong with this is going to be about a communal effort, together we are going to do this. We are not just asking for money and then expecting to get the money and not have anything given back except for a ball team on the field and maybe not much money invested into that ball team. And the valuation of our club, the valuation of how much money we are going to be worth in this organization will continue to rise and escalate. That's not what this is about. We want to make sure this is a partnership, first and foremost, for the next 40 years for the Royals, the next 25, 30, 40 years for the Chiefs, a full-on partnership. But that full-on partnership has taken so long to where it took them so long to even figure out where they were going to go, that now we're discussing 3 weeks from the actual vote, and all they're saying is, don't worry, a big part of our selling point to the community, trust us, it'll be better. Here's Mark Donovan on where they stand right now on all of this.
Yeah, I would say this. We've done a ton of these, and we've done a lot of work on this. We've talked to a lot of different people. In addition to, I think it's 20,000 doors we've knocked on. We've talked to people in their homes and in their neighborhoods, in their places of business. We have sat on a number of different panels and talked to a lot of people. Every single time we've done that, we've learned a little bit, and I think the people in the room have learned a lot. Because it is confusing and it is complicated. Let's just take, for example, if you were to go into the voting booth and look at the ballot language, if I were to read that, I'd be confused, right? I've done it. I've been in other ballots where I have absolutely no idea what this means. I'm not sure which way to vote. So we're trying to simplify that for people. The reality is, what that ballot says is doing this keeps two teams in your county, in your region, and it does it on a better deal than they currently have, than the county currently has. We've actually committed to put millions and millions of dollars into this marketplace, to invest hundreds of millions of dollars into a county-owned asset and develop another county-owned asset. And for that, we're actually asking for less.
The selling point there is, and I like Mark Donovan, and I understand his role with the Chiefs, and I understand what his role is in being out front and having the press conference and meeting with some members of the media. But he just ballot explained and simplified what happens at the doctor's office when you're already in the room. And they're like, if you can just sign this, this just explains that, we're not going to let anybody know about your records. This just explains that, we'll only send your records to those that might be approved or your primary care physician. This just initial and sign right there. Cool, I trust you. Initial, sign, great. I don't care. I'm not going to read through the 3 pages of this. Here, this page says this, and then this is page 2 of this and page 3 of that. You just need initial there and sign right there. I mean, you're there, the nurse is there, or whoever, and they're standing next to you, and he or she is like, yeah, just sign. Like, well, I don't know that I've got much time to sit here and read through it. I trust you. I've never had my records released to the Kansas City Star before. I think it's fine. I'll just go ahead and sign up. There you go. There's my signature. Like, it's a little bit of that when Mark Donovan is like, look, I know that these ballot measures, what you're voting on, are really confusing. And anybody that's been in that booth, you look at it, start reading through, and I'm like, and you start to go, what does this mean? Like, I've been there. I'm like, what does this mean? Hold on. Which side am I actually voting for or against? Because this is pretty vague and generic language, and it seems confusing on purpose. I don't think that's what they're trying to do. But when he says, essentially, when we break it down, what the ballot says is you're getting a better deal for less, and you get to keep teams in Kansas City. So would you like that? Jackson County, for less than what you're putting in right now, we as a team are going to put in more money. We're going to give you a better deal. You get to keep the Royals, and it is less money for you. And that all sounds great. That is a great way to present it. But there's no way that's what's going to be on the ballot. And also, it's not going to be less because it's going to be an extension of the current tax. So it's just going to be, what's going on right now. They're running out of time. It is not to where the Royals and the Chiefs shouldn't do anything. They should still be working. But it comes off as comical at this point that we're 3 weeks away, and this was a main point for them. And if you're voting on it, you don't know what the give back is going to be. Yes, they've talked with the business owners around there in the land that they are going to build on. We've had conversations with the business owners, and we've had conversations of the tenants that may not own those businesses. And each one, we're going to have to go individually. You get this passed, we're moving there. And then we will individually meet and get these deals done one by one with the business owners and the tenants that are inside some of those buildings. We will get it done. We'll get it taken care of. What about the community benefits agreement? We're going to have some job training. Okay, but that's sort of minimalistic on this whole thing. Trust us. It will be better. Look what they did at KCI. Yes, I know, the job training. You mentioned that. But it'll be more job training. Yes. Okay, that's great. That's good for the community to train more people to have, careers. But housing, displacement, business owners, minimum wage, jobs, a lot of other things that go into that besides just job training. It'll be better. We're giving more. It's a better deal. You get to keep teams, less money. We're giving more money. How could you possibly not see all of the great things that this has to offer? By the way, for the next 40 years. Because once you vote, there's no going back. There's no going back and the Royals going, oh, no. Actually, we're going to give more community benefits now. We decided out of the graciousness of our heart that we're going to give more. Oh, you guys didn't know that this was all it was when you voted? Oh, sorry. We told you it was going to be more. We did one extra job training than KCI. We'll take a time. Obviously, that's sarcasm, but we'll take a time out. We'll come back, continue rolling. More Zone next. UCF is going to win game number 1 of the Big 12 tournament, up by 17 over Oklahoma State. Mick Schaefer will have a short trip to T-Mobile to hang out and watch his Cowboys. Is Corey Anderson back in town? I texted Corey over the weekend on Saturday. I said, hey, are you going to the game? Because Oklahoma State played at BYU. And he said, I'm assuming you're talking about the Oklahoma State-BYU game. I will not be attending that. I am boycotting Oklahoma State basketball until further notice. So I don't think he's in town watching that.
Then I am too.
You know what? I'm not going to watch another Oklahoma State. In about 40 seconds, I am done watching any and all Oklahoma State basketball this year. I'm done with it. Once I watched on Saturday night against BYU to see if they could get the win, to see where Kansas could be playing, if they were going to be playing tomorrow, if they're going to be waiting to play on Thursday. Mick Schaefer texted and said, I just left. Couldn't take any more. You waited that long? You stayed that long? Good for you. You know what? That actually shows that you're committed. We were over at Mick Schaefer's house a couple of weekends ago, and my son goes down to his basement and looks around and he goes, boy, you can really tell he's an Oklahoma State fan. I said, yes, you can. Peter Polk all over the place. I know it's Pistol Pete, but I like calling him Peter Polk. But good for you, Mick. If you just now left, good for you. And by the way, yesterday, watching the Kansas State and Texas women's basketball game, I thought it odd throughout most of the game hearing them talk about Mick Schaefer. Constantly. And tonight, if you're going to be watching the Texas and Iowa State women's championship, you'll hear a lot about Mick Schaefer. Except for Texas head coach is named Vic Schaefer. And over. Looks like Mick Schaefer is going to call a timeout. Is he there? We were watching it yesterday. My wife and I, we were watching the K-State game because we've become K-State women's basketball fans with the Glenn sisters being on the team and the twins and being from Barstow. And so we've been watching the team this year. So we're watching the game and she's like, is Mick a part of the broadcast? I said, why do you ask? She's like, they keep saying Mick Schaefer throughout the whole thing. I said, well, Texas head coach is named Vic Schaefer, but I get it. Totally understandable as to why you would think Mick Schaefer was a part of the broadcast. But there you go. It has gone final. UCF has knocked off Oklahoma State. Game number 1 in the books of the Big 12 tournament getting underway. And then, now that that's over 25 minutes from now, so right around 2 o'clock. When that game was scheduled to go off before the game started of West Virginia-Cincinnati, right around 2 o'clock is when West Virginia and Cincinnati will play. The winner of that one taking on KU, that will be playing without Hunter Dickinson and without Kevin McCullough. And Bill Self, and I do believe Bill Self in that when he was talking to Brian Haney last night and saying, look, the doctors are saying they're going to be healthy. They're going to be fine. Hunter Dickinson's going to be healthy. Kevin McCullough's going to be healthier than he's been in a long time. So we are going to be ready to go for the NCAA tournament. I think that's probably the case. But with the selection committee figuring out where teams are going and what seed line they're going to be on, I can understand why Bill Self would then want to make it known this is not Kenyon Martin. This is not, Florida State, Jordan Travis. This is not that situation. These guys are returning. They'll be back. I mean, a little bit last year, didn't we go through this when it was, Bill Self is going to be coaching in the NCAA tournament. So selection committee, Bill Self will be there on the sideline. He will be coaching in the NCAA tournament. Narrator, he did not coach in the NCAA tournament. I think Kevin McCullough will play in the NCAA tournament. I think Hunter Dickinson will. And Myron Metcalf on earlier in the show said the exact opposite. He said, I'm a little more skeptical about Kevin McCullough. And me, I'm a little more skeptical about Hunter Dickinson. That, we've seen Kevin McCullough sit out a number of days and then go and play. This will be almost 2 weeks that he would have sat out than going and playing. Because he didn't practice last week, and he only played 10 minutes or so against Houston on Saturday. or less than that. I don't remember what the final minute count was. I stopped watching that game, as most did as well, once it got pretty bad. So that amount of minutes is all he's put on his body in really 2 weeks from when they take the floor next Thursday or Friday to face off in their first team. Like, he looks at it, and Myron Metcalf said he's more skeptical of Kevin McCullough. I'm more skeptical of Hunter Dickinson because I saw that dude walk off the court holding his shoulder like that. And that sucks. Terrible timing when he's reaching up and that guy's coming down. It's just one of those things that happen in basketball. There was no malicious intent or anything with that. There wasn't anything that was on purpose. It was just unfortunate. I think he'll play. How effective will he be? It's his right shoulder as opposed to his left. So that helps being, left-handed. But how much that will make a difference, we'll see. And we'll see who KU ends up playing, whether that be Cincinnati or West Virginia. It would be best for them if they want to win and move on to face off against West Virginia. It would be best for them if they were going to lose tomorrow to face off against Cincinnati, because I don't think that would hurt the resume in any way, shape, or form. What hurts the resume right now is not knowing how healthy those guys are going to be and not knowing what that conversation is going to be inside the room this week. Not even Sunday. I mean, Sunday, the thing's pretty much set. We know that. We've seen teams that have won conference tournaments on Sunday and their seed line doesn't move or is affected at all because Sunday morning they've pretty much got the bracket in place, unless there's a team that's trying to be a bid thief. Unless there's a team on a Sunday that's playing and it's like, well, we definitely have to wait for this team because we don't know what's going to happen on this, Sunday afternoon if we've got to go and add another team in there. Like, for instance, if I'm looking at, you know what? I'll bring up one. Missouri on Sunday morning. When the NCAA tournament selection committee is like, you know what? Missouri's got this game at noon. And if they win, they're in the tournament. If not, then they're out. Our whole bracket is waiting on Missouri to see if they will win. Like, those are the few times when the bracket will get moved around or adjusted based on a win or a loss on that Sunday. But it would be better for KU if they ended up losing tomorrow, for them to face off against Cincinnati, for that to be the case. If they were, looking to win and play a couple, then yeah, you want to play West Virginia, because the value is, if Hunter Dickinson and Kevin McCullough are not healthy for next week, this is the team you're going into the tournament with, at least for the first weekend. And if you're a 4 seed, you're taking on a tough 5 seed. You're taking on that 50-50 game in the second round. You're also taking on a team in a seed line that sees plenty of upsets. And Kansas, for the most part, for the entire part, has earned that 3 or 4 or whatever seed they got based on Dickinson and McCullough being there, for a good portion of the season. And without those guys there, you're talking about a lesser team against a pretty good conference champion that just won their conference tournament. And that's who Kansas will be facing off against. It's a good, solid team, probably veteran team, and just ran through their conference tournament. That's a tough ask in the first round. And then 2 days later to say, hey, go now beat this 5 seed. That may be in the same situation they are. So we'll see what ends up happening with that. 913-912-4810. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, wrap up the show. Coming up next, we'll continue talking some NFL. Look at some of the free agents that are still out there. If anything gets done today, wide receiver market's still wide open. We'll see what the latest will be with Calvin Ridley, if anything will get done. Patrick Queen is heading to the Steelers on a 3-year, $41 million contract. Darnell Mooney is off the board. Gabe Davis is off the board. Calvin Ridley may be off the board, but just not announced yet. Sort of an interesting kind of detail of his contract and the trade, I should say, that they made with the Atlanta Falcons. We'll get into some of that on the other side of the break. We continue rolling here on this Tuesday edition at Sports Radio 810 WHB. All right, 913-912-4810 is the text line to join us, 913-912-4810. Some of the observations from free agency and negotiation period opening up on Monday, and then tomorrow being the official start of the new league year, and these deals can be announced, these deals can be finalized. A couple things from this. One, I do think there's a direct connection with the draft to what we're seeing right now, as it should be. If you're sitting there with the number of picks and you see a heavy positional group that you can get some value in the draft, then why spend a lot of money on that positional group in free agency? Unless there's some value to be had. And typically on the first couple days, there's not a lot of value. Typically, you're sitting back and waiting for some of that value to come back to you. Again, it's a little bit like fantasy football. If you're in the auction leagues and people are throwing money out there early on to make sure they get a stud player, a lot of that value may be either in the middle of the draft or late in the draft. That value might be there. Dollar holler players. It's like, wow, you got that dude for $2? I did get that guy for $2 because you paid $75 for Larry Johnson. That was your mistake. Sorry. Don't be dumb. Man, Derek Blaylock. Great guy.
It's a very specific example.
That may have happened one year a while ago. We were joking around. It was like a dude was late to the fantasy draft, and we were waiting for him. And he ended up getting the first throw out, right? You throw the player out for the auction. And we were joking, like, man, this dude's going to come in here and immediately throw Larry Johnson out there, right? And everybody's just going to throw a lot of money out there. And I'm like, and I had a couple running back keepers, so I'm like, cool, do that. Throw out Larry. He comes in, it's like, my first, all right, crap, Larry Johnson in the room. Oh, of course. He went for like 65. Like, what are you guys complaining about? If he was the fifth person thrown out, he's still going to go for stupid money, right? It's like, man, I don't have any money left to get some of these valuable players. Yeah, I know. Because the Panthers spent $20 million on Robert Hunt at guard. But what we're seeing is a lesser than running back market, or a lesser than running back position in the draft, that there aren't a lot of running backs that you look at and go, okay, these guys might be difference makers in the NFL. There's some nice pieces there, and I think the Chiefs would be smart to draft one in the NFL draft. I would love a guy that's got some burst to him. That's my preference, is somebody that can get up and go quickly. I don't necessarily need them to run a 4-3, but I would like them to have a good 10-second and 20-second split, because I would like them to throw the ball to a running back on a screen and have that running back turn and get up the field and go. Because too often it seems like they throw the football, the running back gets it, looks, and then it's a little bit slower. It's one thing that Pacheco doesn't have. He doesn't have that quick burst. He can break tackles. He has that physicality to him. He's got the patience that's developing, but that burst to get outside the tackles, the burst to he catches it and then boom, starts going and gets to top speed quickly, not necessarily there. That's a player I would love to add to the Chiefs. Where do you get that? Probably in the draft this year, middle of the rounds. Because of that, we've seen a number of running backs sign for some decent deals. The running back market is not bouncing back. Saquon Barkley got $39 million, or $37, almost $38 million, I have to say. $12.5 million per year, if you want to go to that for 3 years. But we're also seeing guys like, Tony Pollard got $8 million per year. Aaron Jones got a 1-year deal for $7 million. DeAndre Swift got $8 million per year. 3 years, $24 million for some of these players. Austin Eckler, $4.2 million per year. I would have been in the Austin Eckler business if I was the Chiefs. But do you want to pay $8 million over 2 years for Austin Eckler for a backup running back? When you've got positions to worry about. You don't know who's going to play tackle right now. And the thing that we're seeing in the running back and the wide receiver market and how those things are connected is the wide receiver spot in the draft is a really deep position. And I don't think teams are ready to just go out and spend a bunch of money on wide receivers if they don't feel like they need that guy, if there's somebody that can give you that production in the second round. I'm going to go pay you $15 million per year, but I got this guy in the second round I can get for $1 million? For, $5 million over the next 4 years? I don't think I'm going to pay you $15 million. Now it's more of a given if you're signing somebody as a free agent of what they've done already. But cost acquisition, how much is it going to cost for you to bring in a guy that you feel like you can get there in the second or third round? Or if you're going to spend a first rounder on a player that can be a high-level wide receiver as opposed to spending $13-14 million on Gabe Davis. And yes, I'm going to keep coming back to Gabe Davis because the Jags spent $13 million a year on Gabe Davis. I don't know what's worse. $20 million a year on Robert Hunt, or a guard, or $13 million a year on Gabe Davis? I don't know what. The answer to that is yes, is what's worse. The Chiefs, their news today, they have signed Irv Smith Jr., tight end, will be the third tight end on this team. It's depth. Athletic, big guy, good blocker. I think Blake Bell's replacement. They've signed him. And they've signed Deion Bush. So they brought Deion Bush back for 1 more year. And the Chiefs are 2-0 in Super Bowls with Deion Bush on the team. I mean, that's an indisputable fact, by the way. Chiefs are 2-0 when Deion Bush is on the team. And they're bringing him back for another year. It's a nice ad. We'll see what they do at the safety position. If they bring back Mike Edwards as well. I've talked about the safety position. I think yesterday we talked about it a little bit. I may have talked about it on a different show. Don't really know. But Mike Edwards is a guy that I think you can bring back. But also I've mentioned Jordan Fuller. I don't think he's signed anywhere yet. If he has, then my bad. So many names that are coming down. But Jordan Fuller, a guy for the Rams, 2 years younger than Mike Edwards. It would take a 2-year deal for Jordan Fuller. But I think he might be a guy that, is typically a deep safety, smart player, good in coverage, tackles well. He's not going to be a Justin Reed where he's going to come down and throw his body at you, but he could be the quarterback of the defense if, let's say, You sign him to a 2-year deal. You get to the end of this contract with Justin Reed at the end of this year, and sides don't work out, and then you've got Jordan Fuller and Brian Cook, as opposed to then another 1-year deal for Mike Edwards, which I'd be perfectly fine with. But they've got a number of places that they can go and they can check out and they can go and bring in and still have to answer to, still have to fill those roles. Tight end room, had to fill the role. Safety, had to fill the role. But right now, the wide receiver market, there's a lot of just wait and see. And Calvin Ridley specifically is a really interesting one because a lot of, some people out of Jacksonville are looking at it and saying no news on Calvin Ridley is good news for them because of the quirky part of the trade with Atlanta, that when the new league year starts tomorrow, if Calvin Ridley agrees to a contract with the Jags, then Jacksonville sends a third-rounder to Atlanta. If Calvin Ridley signs a contract before the new league year tomorrow, then Jacksonville sends a second-round pick to Atlanta. So he may have already agreed to terms with the Jags. They're just not going to announce that. So we'll see. Curtis Samuel's been talked about, but no news on that. I've wanted the Chiefs to go out and get Teair Tart. No news on that. A bunch of other guys that I had mentioned on Monday before free agency and the negotiation period opened up that have since been signed and are going elsewhere. But the tackle market, Tyron Smith's still out there. David Bakhtiari's still out there. But you got injured guys. Donovan Smith's still out there. Running backs, slim pickings right now. I think it increases the chance that Clyde Edwards-Helaire may return to the Chiefs. We'll see. Wide receivers, a lot of the same names still out there outside of Calvin Ridley. Let's play this clip if we can. We send you out and end the show on this. 10 years ago today, or no, it was 12 years ago today. This is a high school report from a Patrick Mahomes high school player, and the names are interesting. Take a listen to this.
Back in football season, Patrick Mahomes Jr. was the best quarterback in all of Class 4A. Just 2 weeks ago, he was named the District 14 4A Basketball Player of the Year. Now, it's baseball season, and by the way, Patrick really good at that sport today as well. Today, pitching against Mount Pleasant and their stud, Michael Kopech. Both guys pitching the mid-90s, but it's Patrick Mahomes Jr. getting the win on the mound, 2-1. His stat line, incredible. 16 strikeouts in a complete game, no-hitter. Just 4 walks. That's the reason why it wasn't a perfect game. White House is now 13-0 on the year and look well on their way to return to the state tournament like they did back in 2013.
They win a game, and he outduels Michael Kopech. Mahomes throws a no-hitter versus a guy who is pitching for the Chicago White Sox, Michael Kopech. So there you go. We send you off into the program with Todd Lebo with a little blast from the past of 4A Player of the Year, Patrick Mahomes in basketball. 4A Player of the Year, Patrick Mahomes in football. And Patrick Mahomes just threw a no-hitter in baseball. Tell you what, man, he's pretty good. Pretty good player. Just thank God he chose football. So we're not talking about him being reassigned to minor league camp in the Orioles organization today. We're talking about the greatest, most talented football player we've seen. Todd Lebo, program next.